Coming to you live from my apartment, it's Rob Has a Podcast. And now here's the guy whose kids said to me right before this podcast, get those Chizzy points, baby. I'm Rob Cesternino. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rob Has a Podcast here, Feedback Show. Yes, the Feedback Show here for episode number 10 of Survivor 43. And we are so lucky to be joined here with us on this podcast here today with a woman who, in my mind, the world's foremost Survivor expert is here with us today. Of course, you know her from Survivor Global, her coverage of Australian Survivor, South Africa, and more. It's the great Shannon Guss. Shannon, how are you?
Rob, thank you for having me. Thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm a little bit preoccupied with the fact that one of your sons doesn't understand how the Chizzy works. Like you can't get the Chizzy
one
points.
of them,
You're going to give them out. Yeah. So maybe you'll just have to sit down and explain it to them so that they know. Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
No shade, but.
All right. We're here live today on a Friday night, the day after Thanksgiving. And so, of course, I am especially thankful that I got to meet Shannon Guss and Peter Guss, but only a couple of weeks ago. Earlier this month.
I know. What a great time. I'm wearing my emu shirt, if you can't see, from
Yeah, I was going to wear mine for the know-it-alls, but I wanted to wear my black shirt instead.
Yeah, because that was a reference. I was surprised Oma didn't wear it. I'm like, now I can wear mine, which I don't love doing because I haven't worn it. I'm not going to lie because it's so orange. I don't really want to put this in the wash with anything else.
You think it will run?
Yeah, it might. Oma, let me know the washing instructions. Like if it's the kind of shirt that runs, because I don't want everything to be Taku orange. Maybe that was his plan. That's giving out shirts so that everyone's clothes would be fully orange.
Shannon, how is the laundry cycle like what's happening right now?
I don't really understand it. It would be the thing. Like it's hard to, clearly I don't know how to wash this shirt. So that's what I would say. I mean, how would you say that heart surgery is like what's happening? Also, we don't understand these things, right?
Yeah, we'll explain it all. And we got a really fun episode to talk about on Wednesday night. I got together with Omer. If you missed that one, I thought that was a really fun know-it-alls that I got to do with Omer. Of course, Steven was traveling, but I thought Omer was really locked in on Wednesday night. Made it for a very fun conversation to talk about what's going on. And I think that in a lot of ways, I think that what's going on with Jesse is similar to the position that Omer found himself in Survivor 42. So I think that is a worthwhile conversation. Tomorrow on Saturday, I get the chance to catch up with my friend, Tiffany Seeley, and we'll hear from her about what's going on and what she's seen so far in Survivor 43, 10 episodes in. So be on the lookout for that. We'll be live for the patrons with that podcast at 11 a.m. Eastern coming up on Saturday. Okay, Shannon, how has your week been?
It's been great. I agree. Oma was amazing. Too good. I messaged him like, I'm angry about it because he was so good. I agreed with so many of his points. He gave me a lot to think about, but I'm like, don't take that insight. Like, don't be that guy who just gets like the first in with these incredible insight. Yeah, I didn't appreciate. Not that Steven wouldn't have been amazing, but great know-it-alls. I thought a really fun episode of the show. And otherwise, we're very upset. Like we've had those post-vacation blues that have been, I think, the worst I've ever had.
Yeah.
The day after that first day of work after like what was like our favorite vacation ever. Pete and I actually scissor paper rock to see who would have to support the other one through life because neither of us wanted to be at work and I lost. So basically I need a raise, Rob. But yeah, I'm going to be supporting Peter because we were both struggling through the fact that we were back from like the best trip ever. So that's basically what's going on with me.
Yeah, well, so nice to hear that it was such a great trip. All of your pictures were all so fun to see you meeting all of these different survivors as you traveled from Washington, D.C. to New York to Boston. I mean, really, like your hero, Taylor Swift. What a tour.
Yeah, it's pretty much, except that people could get tickets to this one. But
yes,
it wasn't
got to meet you.
Yeah, and look, I touched Taylor Swift's hand twice once, but so I'm like,
you touched her hands twice once?
Yeah, twice once. Yeah, I did.
It was like a double tap?
No, I was at
Outlaw Code?
Her first concert in Australia, her first tour. I got like brought down to the front, just luckily, and I was on the leaning on the stage and touched her hand twice. best moment of my life. But in terms of my tour, where I touched many hands, different. No, it was incredible. It wasn't meant to be a Survivor tour of the East Coast of
Hope you
America.
had Purell on you.
I did. I was sanitizing a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Not that like, these COVID times, like, hand sanitizer is the best thing we were given from COVID. I feel I'm like never want to go back to a pre-hand sanitizer time.
Mm.
Anyway, we toured America in a Survivor way. We literally did come for the know-it-alls. Had know-it-alls not been happening, we wouldn't have been in America. We came for that. And it was worth it. Like one of the best nights of my life. I think I said to you, Rob, it was like my wedding and then know-it-alls in that order, but still like unbelievable. And then we went to New York. We had a pageant event. We caught up with Mike Turner in Hoboken, which was something I wouldn't even know about if Mike Turner didn't exist, but it was a beautiful place. We went to Boston. We went to Bryson Wen there. We caught up with Evie. So a lot going on. We caught up with Steven in DC. We're basically just going around having meals with people who've played Survivor. The Survivor community is so kind and wonderful and just like embraces you. So it was just a great time.
Okay. Well, so happy to have you here with us to talk about everything that's going on. And I really think we're at such a fun point in Survivor 43. I think, Survivor 43, it's been a slow burn, but I do feel like that I guess maybe, Shannon, let me ask you this way. You flew what, 25 hours to
27, Rob, how dare you? 35 back,
27 grueling hours to get to this point that you said was the best trip of your life. It is, in some ways, Shannon, could you compare that to Survivor 43 for us?
Okay, the analogy game, I'm not doing this for 3 hours with you, Rob. This is not tribal council. Like, I can't, like, because I think it's like the opposite of that. Like, the flight was torture. The trip was amazing. So it's like horrible until like amazing. And then it was horrible again to get home. This season, I feel like is on a very even plane. No pun intended. Because like, have we had that big moment? What's like the defining moment of the season? I'm not sure. I enjoy every episode. I think every episode I'm like, that was fun. Like I enjoy hanging out with the cast because I like the people, but I don't think there's been that like big high yet. And I don't really even think there's been like majorly low lows. Like I think the biggest criticism you could have of the season is that it's just like a fun, nice time. I said it last week on the podcast or a couple weeks ago that Jamal with Bryson Wen used the word pleasant. And I was like, that's how I feel. Like it's a fun time, but I don't feel like I'm hitting those highs and lows.
So for me, I feel like that it has been kind of a slow go. Not to say it hasn't been pleasant the whole way through, but I think that we've sort of been waiting for the game to kick into high gear. And I feel like that we're at a point where I feel like the game is very fluid. And I feel like that this is my favorite kind of Survivor that we're at right now. While I know that Jesse does seem to be the front runner right now, that I think that there are a lot of ways that things can shift and we have a lot of fun stuff to talk through. So I feel like that rather than where it's a season where it seems like it's a foregone conclusion, that I think that we're at a point where I think that there's a lot of different ways this can go. And I think this makes for a really fun Survivor to watch and to talk about on the podcast.
I agree. I mean, in terms of like outcomes, I think it's like a wide open game. I think it would be difficult to predict who's going to win, and you could make the case for almost anybody. So that's fun. That shows that it's going to be fun going forward. And I enjoy where we're at. It's voting blocks. And I think the really fun thing about voting blocks is like everyone's trying to control things from a minority position. Like no one has a majority. That's the whole point of being in these groups. So you see these creative strategies. Like I'd love to talk about what Jesse was doing, but he's like dividing and conquering. Like the best way to control things from a minority is to make sure none of the other groups can link up by turning them against each other. And I think that's what he was trying to do. So it creates these really cool and fun strategies. And the episode in general, I feel like had something for everyone. Like the challenge moment with Noel was amazing. It had the personal content with the letters. It had like the fun strategic editing. Well, maybe not for everyone because some people still were complaining about it, but I think that it was a fun episode that, mostly anyone could enjoy.
All right, so Shannon, I would love to get your take on everything that went on in terms of what Jesse did in this episode.
Yes. Well, I love Jesse. He's such a fun character. I know there's been a bit of debate, and I want your take before we get into the strategy. Like, is Jesse a villain? Because I was arguing about this with both my brother and husband, who both disagree with me, that I feel like you could easily put him on a villains tribe in Heroes versus Villains. Like, he's super likable. You understand why he's doing it. He's got this family connection. But, like, to read out the resume, like, what he's... Like, he turned on Neca in the second tribal council. That was, like, very early to turn on a key ally. He turned on Vessi. He stole an idol, which we've seen in International Survivor this year, which was, like, the most demonic thing a person could do.
Did Dwight just give it to him?
Well, that's what someone asked. Like, he didn't steal it. Dwight gave it to him. Dwight gave it to him to hold, and now he has it. he stole it. Like he wasn't meant to have it this long down the line
Right.
as his own as his own idol to use for the future, especially a secret idol. And then like, there's been comparisons to Dawn voting out Noel after the letter, and after she gave him that, she's voting out Noel because she's so inspiring. Like this was something that came up recently in Survivor South Africa about like targeting people for their inspiring story that they can't help. Like these are villainous things, but Jesse's super likable, I feel, so it doesn't come across. But when you think about it, he did evil laugh in this episode, and he laid out his dastardly plan. What could be more villainous than doing those things?
Yeah, I guess that's fair. He's probably as much of a villain as we tend to get in these Survivor seasons, but I do not feel like overall Survivor wants us to feel like he is a villain. Like I feel like that
They did
he
make
is.
him laugh.
Did they make him evil laugh,
He
or
laughed.
was he laughing on his own?
They included him evil laughing.
Yeah, when he was talking about his plan, like he's like
Yeah.
laughing through on one of the checklist numbers. He's like laughing through it as he's saying what it is,
So
almost like that
villainous.
it's cracking himself up. So is that evil laughter? I'm not sure.
It was
I
it was an evil laugh. It was
but I feel like that Jesse, and I've lost track if he's gotten either 2 or 3 different personal story montages throughout the season. If he truly is a villain, I don't think that they work that hard to try to give us like so much of his backstory to make us be rooting for him. So I think that ultimately I don't think Jesse will win the season. I think that Jesse is going to be in for my money, and I hope I'm wrong. But I don't think Jesse will be the winner of the season. But I think that they are trying to, give you so much of his game because it's so fun. So I guess my kind of half-assed answer is I think he is like almost as much of a villain as you get from a Survivor player nowadays, but I really don't think that they want you to dislike him.
That's probably true because everyone has incredible story, and Jesse definitely does.
Mhm.
Like there are reasons to identify with him. I think I don't like hate the villains. Like I enjoy it. I felt like Omar was a villain
Yeah.
last season and he was having fun with it, but you obviously were meant to and did like him. But he's also like looking at the camera and lying to people. Like if you looked at the rap sheet,
Yeah.
definitely a villain.
Here, can I make the distinction of that? I feel like that Survivor was giving us James as a villain more so than Jesse as a villain, where I think that they were
Mm.
trying to show James from a edit of that James is trying to control this game. Like, James is, trying to, he wants everybody to do what he wants to do. Where Jesse, we're getting so much of his motivation and his family and his his kids letters and what they mean to him, and he's playing a hard game but he's doing it for a reason, where that James, it seemed like that they were just trying to paint him as, oh, James is just trying to run this game and he's not letting us do what we want to do.
Yeah, I'm just laughing because in such similar circumstances, particularly with Australian Survivor, it definitely is. If you're a father doing these things, we totally get it. You're a hero. If you're a mother
Mhm.
doing these things, we hate you even more. How dare a mother do this? But I think that it's true. I mean, look, James's family story was relegated to the secret scene, so you might feel a different kind of way about it. But I think, like for me, it's broader. I don't see James as a huge villain either. I think it is a new era thing, the
No,
style of editing, and I also think it's
a
that.
lowercase v villain
Yeah, exactly, like
for
pretty
James or
minor.
Jesse. Yeah.
Yeah, I think as well in like the new era, you might be less offended by moves as an audience in the US and as players. So people aren't necessarily as angry. So like the moves don't hit the same. And then like especially this cast, I think that what it is they're all very kind and respectful people. So like Noel's not like, I hate you for this villain, Jessie. She's like, she gets it. And I think the way that they all went to her, even during the challenge and after the challenge when she was going through that, it really hit home for me that she like this cast is like, I don't feel like they'll have any beef after this. I feel like they're just kind to each other and they all kind of get it. So in that really kind of pleasant environment, it's harder to have villains. Like even in the new era, I don't think we could say that for the last 2 seasons. I don't think they all came off the show and it was all fine and dandy. And some of the way that might have been like genuinely personal created like good drama on television, as much as it probably sucks with those people after the show. Whereas this season, I kind of bet that's not true. Like I feel like it would all be okay. So it's that pleasantry that maybe is not like leaning into being like these dastardly villains.
Okay. All right. So in terms of Jesse,
Jesse,
and
yes.
we got to see his first person point of view of what he had to do. Shannon, you've studied so much Survivor. You've seen so many tribal councils. all throughout all the different variations of Survivor around the world. Do you stand by Jesse's Jesse rules of how to execute a blindside? Can we talk through the three rules of the blindside and tell me if you think that does Jesse have it correct?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Let's do it.
Okay. Checklist number one is you have to have a cover story. Does that check out for you?
I mean, that seems pretty basic for any part of Survivor, right?
For sure. I think that part, you need to have a fake plan because you need to be telling the person who's going to get blindsided that there's going to be a fake plan. Okay. Checklist number 2, Jesse tells us, is you have to have a fall guy. Okay. This is where I wonder, is this always the case? Do you have to have a fall guy?
This feels very specific to Jesse's specific plan that he needs to do. I mean, this was my favorite part of the 3 points we gave. Also love Jesse, getting the 3-2-1, which we love on Survivor Global, into the show. But it was incredible that poor Sammy, who had easily his worst episode in the season, was such a fall guy. He's led into voting wrong when it seems he doesn't even want to do it, and he's split on by his own group. It was just a horrible way for it to go. So I feel setting up Sammy, I would probably put money on Sammy going next. That would be my prediction. So even an important part of the move, I feel, for Jesse is not just what he's doing here, but what it sets up in the future. And if Sammy can go next, I think Jesse's in a phenomenal position. So it's important to a long-term plan and to a multi-step plan as well.
Yeah, because in the 1 and 2, I think it's got a little convoluted, because I think that Jesse says, okay, you have to have a cover story. And I think his cover story was, I was talking to Cody about getting my idol back. That was the cover story. The cover story wasn't the fake plan, correct?
Yeah, I think, the cover story, you need a cover story for, I think what he was saying generally is you need a cover story for every single thing you do. It is complicated. Every conversation you have to think about what you're actually doing and then how every other person can perceive it. So in that conversation with Cody, which is him talking to his number one ally, but I guess a cover story that they're not talking about a plan. Couldn't the cover story be we were talking about the plan for Carla? But I think the point is always be thinking about how people perceive you, which does seem like a good rule.
Yeah. And then checklist number 3 was have a backup plan. And now the backup plan, I'm not sure necessarily how useful it was. If anything, Jesse's number 3 of have a backup plan kind of almost led to, basically from where we were sitting, maybe the entire plan becoming undone.
Yeah. Well, we can talk about what he was doing, but I think going to Gabler was the worst part of what he was doing. What I was predicting in the moment, it was going to be tick 1, tick 2, and then have a backup plan, big X, and then he goes to Carla, and this could have been Jesse's demise. That's not what we saw. It might lead to that next week. We can talk about if that will come to fruition. But that's what I was expecting, because when he ticked the backup plan, technically yes, but it also was the one kind of bad thing that happened for Jesse in this episode.
Yeah, please go on.
In terms of with Jesse's plan?
Yeah, well, if you want to talk about the worst part of Jesse's plan, telling Gabler, please expand.
Yeah. Well, okay, so basically what I'm thinking in terms of Jesse's plan in general, to then get to why I didn't telling Gabler. Jesse's plan, what I loved about it, people who've listened to my content before will know that I love plurality votes. I did a whole podcast on plurality votes, and that's what Jesse was intending to do. I really appreciated that. He was trying to do a 4-3-1. He created the split, and that's one of the 3 types of plurality votes that we talked about on the podcast that we did, coming over the top of a split, and also come over the top of chaos or 2 warring factions. So he creates the split so that they can have control as a 4, which I loved. And the reason I love that...
Can you just just explain that 4-3-1 in terms of people who were not taking notes during the episode of who was the 4, who was the 3, and who was the 1?
Yeah, so he created this group of 6 and then took himself and Cody out of it. So it should have been a 4-4. But then he created his 6-2, split the votes on a 3-3, meaning that once he took he and Cody's votes out of it, their 3 would still remain. The Bucker boys would vote 3. Noel's 1 wouldn't be on Carla, and then their 4 would win the day. It's a very well-worn plurality vote strategy. Tony did it in Winners of War. You take advantage of the fact that a majority is splitting the votes. And I love that he created the vote split. It was even more evil. And then you win even though you don't have an outright majority. So I love that. Carla then is I don't feel that, because if Noel doesn't go with it, if she gets suspicious, then it becomes a 4-4. So Carla, as the person in the line of fire, was understandably really worried about it. But I love that Jesse was trying to do that. And the reason I love him doing the plurality vote, other than the fact that I enjoy those types of votes, is that I feel like Jesse comes in this minority position, as they all do. We've got these voting blocks, 5 groups, like 3 groups of 2, and then Gabler and Sammy as free agents. And what you want to do with he's like in a middle position, like you want to turn everyone against each other. So if this works, like usually you want to be inclusive in a vote, but instead, let's like leave people out. Then Carl and Cassidy come back in this plan, and 3 other people have voted against Carla or their side. So who are they going to work with if not Jesse and Cody? So they're like kind of cornering Carla and Cassidy into having to work with them. That's why I think he was leaving people out, and why, like, obviously he got him the numbers, but I think that's such a brilliant thing to like divide and conquer and turn people against each other. And then it changes because he has to bring Gabler in. But I really love that he was trying to do it on a plurality.
The episode before we go to Tribal Council kind of ends on a note of Gabler. He's told Gabler the plan, and Gabler seems a little unsettled about the whole thing. He goes to Carla and says, hey, I really think that, Jesse and Cody, those guys, we got to like think about them, and maybe there's something that we need to do. I guess on a scale of 1 to 10, how big of a Gabler and Carla problem do you think Jesse has moving forward?
Well, this is why I wanted to say I didn't like him including Gabler, and I got distracted by plurality votes. But if he doesn't include Gabler, and so like Gabler's either included last minute or he's left out completely. Like either way, he's mad. But it's probably a little harder to go to Carla once you've just written her name down. Kind of amazing that he like went to Carla when he had just been intending to write her name down. So I think in going to Gabler, he's misread Gabler, I think, to an extent. And I know that this is something like I always remember you talking about this with Richard Hatch. And Richard Hatch was saying that it's hard for cerebral players like you. And I know I struggle with this in analysis to be like, this is what they should do logically. But a lot of players don't play logically. And it's harder to think about what people would do if you wouldn't do, like, you would do the logical thing, but like Gabler's an emotional player. So like when Jesse and everyone, Cassidy earlier, we have to get out Noel, she's such a warrior. Gabler's saying like, she's a warrior, let's keep her around. And he's put off by the timing. And he doesn't like that it's necessarily against like his other Bucker former allies. So now you've given him that into Carla where he's going to actually be in with Carla for the vote, and they could maybe work on it. So I think that's a little bit of an issue. I still think Jesse will be okay because I think it's in Vessi and Coco's best interest to stay as a 4. We can like talk about moving forward.
Yeah.
And that's what I would do for them, because I kind of feel like if you split now, the odds of just like the 3 Bucker boys being the final 3 is like a strong non-zero chance, and that would just kind of irritate all of them. So you might as well like stick it through for one more vote and go to war at 6. So I think that should keep him in good stead. And he is the one who's protected them, and he's never turned on Carla or Cassidy. So he should maybe be okay. But there's an in there now for Gabler, possibly.
Yeah, the Gabler thing is so wild because I watched the episode again this afternoon to get ready for our conversation, and Gabler has at different points in the episode, he is, of course, talking with Carla and Cassidy about potentially he's going to vote with them. We also see him, obviously talking with Jesse and Cody about what they're going to work with him. We also see him in the episode with Noel and Owen, telling Noel and Owen that Cassidy and Carla are going to be voting them out in this episode. So Gabler is just all over the place.
Yeah. He's really like a social butterfly. I think that like if you look at it though, his like allegiance was to Noel. Like he goes and gives Noel that information. There's a secret scene where they talk about like her reward choices. He's totally fine with being left behind. Like he was very much kind of in the spot I thought Owen could have been. He was left behind as her eyes and ears, and he made good on that. Like he went and immediately told her about the people saying her name. And I don't think that he wanted to vote Noel out here. I think he was told last minute. I think that's why it necessitated telling him last minute, because he might have blown this whole thing up had he had the time and it wasn't raining, as Oma said. But there's nothing he can really do. Like he can only take it to a 4-4 with someone like Sammy who's going to like jump off that sinking ship. So he was cornered into making this move, much like Carla felt like she was last week, which is something people don't enjoy. And like, I think like as well, since Tony talked about the timing thing, like you once the sun's going down, I'm going to tell you about the move. So it's such a vocalized trapping strategy that people are very aware of what you're doing. So they might not be able to do anything about it. It might like hurt, like they can't do anything if you're trying to get a vote through, but it might be hurting as a social move, like as they're trying to do, as Sammy tried to do with Carla as an example, like, hey, I'm letting you know, but you don't feel that respect in that move. So it was kind of similar what Carla and Gabler seemed to go through in these 2 episodes.
So you feel like that Gabler's loyalty was to Noel. Do you think that
Yeah.
Gabler was trying to go to Carla to maybe destabilize this so that maybe Carla might jump on the opportunity to potentially change up the plan and not have Noel voted out?
I don't think he had the time to do it this episode. Like, I kind of felt like he was like, we should do something about that soon. I just feel like what are we going to do now? Like, again, is Carly going to blow this all up for the person who has been protecting her and Jesse? Are we going to be able to get the numbers this close to tribal? Probably not. Like, I feel like Gabler felt trapped when like the vote was brought to him. He didn't feel like it was this long-term thing because it was at the last minute. So when Jesse's saying things like, oh, you need them to feel like they like have good long-term positioning and like envision where they're going to be, hard to be like the three of us will really be in the middle when you were out of the loop until the very last minute. So I think that he did something he didn't want to do. I don't think he wanted to vote out Noel. I think like that was the most consistent thing the whole episode, that he would like, people kept coming to him and saying like, let's vote out Noel. And I don't think that he would want to do that. He dedicated a minute of his challenge to her a couple of weeks back. He seems to be really impressed by her. That's the kind of thing that would drive Gabler to work with you, not against you. So I think he was forced to do something he didn't necessarily want to do. And now like will want revenge because he couldn't, like he just literally didn't have the capability to do anything about it now and is just setting the scene. So I feel like if I was Jesse and I needed a backup plan because Carla feels unsafe with the plurality, Carla, please, plurality votes are the best, but she feels unsafe as a target. I feel like I would have gone to Sammy. Like Sammy didn't even want to be voting for Carla. And
Mhm.
like he actively said like he would have, I think, been much happy to go with Noel. The only reason I could think that Jesse wouldn't do that is to really divide Carla and Sammy, who are so on the rocks as it is, but like had this connection up until last week. Carla doesn't feel great about it. And now they're going to come back and Sammy put Carla's name down. Like that's probably pretty much dead. So it's an important division. So I do get it from that perspective. But I feel like Sammy would have been way more okay with the move to vote out Noel than Gabler.
Okay. I know you want to talk about Sammy. Let me just ask you, how do you feel like you see this final seven going forward? Like
Yeah.
what's going to happen and what's going to happen next?
Well, what's going to happen or what should happen based on people's logics.
Well, what do you
Uh,
think is going to happen?
I think they'll vote out Sammy. I think that they should vote out Sammy. I think that Carla and Cassidy, especially Carla, and then Jesse and Cody are well placed to keep going with this four. They've never flipped on each other. It's like since Jesse chose to be with Coco, like they've stuck by it the whole time. And I think that Carla and Jesse both have a really good shot if they try and win the battle at 6. There's idols all around. There's possible allies that they can pull. They might both think they have like a Gabler, for example. They think they could win that war. And whoever wins has a really good shot. Whereas if they come for each other now, again, Carla and Cassidy would be working with people who have been against them for the most part. But if they come for each other now, it kind of feels like they could all be taken out. Jesse and Carla and maybe Cody. Feels like you could get definitely Owen and Gabler, maybe even Sammy sitting at the final 3. And Sammy, I think, is the biggest threat of the 3 Bucker boys. So I would take out Sammy now and then go to war at 6.
Okay, let's get into Sammy. You said you felt like that he had his worst episode and
Poor
things
Sammy.
have really kind of fallen apart. Can you pinpoint where things went wrong for Sammy?
Yeah. In hindsight, because I was very, very high on Sammy last week. He got 6 Chizzy points from me and Tessa. I thought the way that he worked through that vote, the James vote, was phenomenal. I was like, he's having his cake and eating it too. He's prioritized Carla. He's kept her in the loop. He's given her this agency and this decision while still getting out like James, who's at the top of this majority that he's at the bottom of, like erodes the majority, keeps Carla happy, doesn't make any enemies. What actually happened, as we learned this week, really put last week into a different light. But Carla felt cornered. She felt trapped. I just thought because she kept saying, I'm going to make the decision for me. And then she came this episode and was like, I don't feel like I got to make a decision. Like she felt like it was an attack more than like him outstretching a hand and like this nice gesture. So I didn't realize that would be true. I also thought Carla, like she could tell James to play knowledge is power. So like if she didn't want this, I felt like there were options. But I think I like didn't realize how late in the day it was. And again, people feel trapped by the timing. So for Sammy, like
Mhm.
it like do you see the move differently now from the James move that like now he upset Noel and Owen and Carla and they all come back and they're like very on to the fact that he's just playing all the sides.
I don't know, but did he upset Noel that much. Like I kind of feel like that Jesse got in her ear where going back to her decisions for the reward. I believe that Sammy is the first person that Noel picks. I can't see Noel being that angry with Sammy. I know that Noel, she's made some shrewd moves in the game, but I don't feel like in that emotional moment where she won that she is so duplicitous where she's like working like a Natalie Anderson to like, okay, I have to get my payback on Sammy, but I'm also going to take him to be the first person picked for the reward. Unless she can really separate the game from the personal and felt some other sort of a kinship with Sammy, or there was some promise of if you win, I'll take you. And I feel like that it was Jesse who we saw like some of the conversations where Jesse and Noel were really talking a lot about Sammy. And I wonder if Jesse was sort of like ratcheting that up about we can't trust Sammy.
It seems that he was, but I think that she would be offended anyway. She does have a confessional about the reward where she's like keeping Sammy close to maybe work with her, but also that he can't like run around making schemes. So I think there definitely is a huge element of mistrust there. And she has reason to be very annoyed with Sammy. Like in hindsight, again, I wasn't hugely thinking about this last week because I thought like Owen and Noel will need him. You know, they're on the bottom. Like, what can they really do? Like, take what you can get. You've still got your move through. But if you're Noel, they have this whole big plan against James. And the whole point of using the vote steal is to blindside Coco. And then he went and he told Coco, and he did give Carla the opportunity to upend that plan. Also, in terms of like her credit, and they still majorly credited her, but like a lot of it was you don't want James to be able to steal the vote steal because then he and Carla could have 3 votes. Now there's been 4 votes on James, so it makes that, you know, like he could have done that and he still would have lost. So it takes away from her plan. And like, yeah, this whole amazing blindside, like really changed. And like, she really put a lot into that plan. So I can see why she would be offended. And I also noted at the reward, Sammy must have been somewhere else, maybe like doing a confessional, and Owen, Jesse, and Noel were like Cody and Gabler, like that's our 5, and they left Sammy out of it.
Yeah,
and then they like split on him. So I definitely think like Carla was amping up like that he is untrustworthy, and Jesse was doing it too. But I think Noel has her own reason, rightly, to be mad at him. And then Carla was also mad at him. So instead of like pleasing everyone, which I kind of thought he'd balance last week, he actually upset everyone. So that was unfortunate.
I do think that he would not have been in as bad of a position that had Cassidy not won the immunity challenge, because I think that that vote probably would have been 3 votes, because we saw the Noel and Owen side of it. They were talking about, okay, 3 votes on Cassidy, 3 votes on Carla in case Carla has the idol. And then when Cassidy ends up winning the immunity challenge, I think that Sammy ends up becoming that other person who he doesn't even know, but the votes are being split on Sammy. And then it's also where, you know, it's things are, you know, very bad for Sammy moving forward, where he's also written down Carlo's name at this tribal council. And maybe he can sort of spin it that that wasn't him. But
that'll be hard.
Yeah, he kind of doesn't have a safe haven anymore. You know, it was good when he was flipping back and forth and he kept voting on the right side of the numbers, but now he has flipped back and forth and now was on the short side of the vote.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because he didn't flip. That's the thing. Jesse and Cody flipped from Vessi. He flip-flopped. That it's the flopping. It's not the flipping. Like that's I think the issue with Sammy.
Flip
like
is
in the
good,
last
flop is bad.
Yeah, I'm like, you invented flip-flopping, I feel, in Survivor. Pretty much. Like, flipping had been invented. Well, you were just like, we'll just take it back. Like, we'll flop back. Like, really, that is what happened, right? But I think that, like, also, you did it with Mateo. That's always been a big thing in flipping. Like, Jesse and Cody have each other. You know, Fair Play had Burden. Tony had Woo and then Nick. Like, if you want to flip around, it's really hard to do it alone. You become this, like, very vulnerable and, like, seemingly just, like, very sketchy person who's just, like, blowing wherever the breeze will go. And like Sammy's never had that safe haven because he came from Baka. It's like coming from this horrible family upbringing and then like just struggling through adulthood. That's what his merge has been like. Because he never like, I don't know what happened. Like Gabler wasn't his person in the end. The Baka boys have not been voting together other than like the unanimous Janine vote. They just have not been on the same page. So for Sammy to be like so alone the whole game, like I think he's actually traversed it better than most. Especially so young, but eventually, like, it will catch up to you. He's getting caught now, and he just has had, like, no safe haven throughout the entire game. because like Bucker were on fire and it's just followed him through the entire game.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about what's happening moving forward. Grace Mullen has a question. I feel like Jesse has to be voted out next week at 7. If he isn't, he could use idols at 6 and 5 and win fire making at 4. What do you all think about this? All right. Do you think that Jesse is the most likely person to be voted out next episode?
Well, they don't know that Jesse has an idol. That's a big thing.
Yeah.
So like again, from where we see it, like he's in a pretty good spot with that secret idol. If I'm looking at it from Carla's perspective, and I thought it was really interesting that Oma brought up that like the alphas of the pair and the betas of the pair would have maybe like a different optimal strategy. But like from where Carla sits, if you vote out Jesse next, I guess she has an idol. It's how early you want to go on the move, because then they're going to look at the one other pair in the game, Carla and Cassidy, probably split some votes. Like everyone else at that point will be coming from you. And Jesse's in the same position probably. If he votes out Carla, then he's also like relying on idols. So it's like how much they think they can protect themselves on a riskier pathway if they go for each other this early. Whereas if they take it to 6, then they risk the other person like battling it out, and by the other person I mean like Jesse and Carla, like they risk beasting it out to the end through idols, challenge wins fire, then you have to sit with them, which is pretty painful, but like you have a better chance maybe of getting there and not being targeted yourself because you have that other shield. So is that what you think? Do you think that they should come for each other now?
I really don't. I mean, we've never seen Jesse mention anything about coming for Carla. And what we really don't know is, how does Carla feel about Jesse? The thing that does make a lot of sense is Carla and Cassidy. And again, it's so hard because we have such little information to know where things are at. But if the pair of Jesse and Cody partner up with the pair of Carla and Cassidy, that's 4. And we're at 7.
Yeah.
So that seems to make some sense. The interesting thing here is that the 3 people that are left outside of that 4 are the 3 Baka men from the start of the game. And is it possible that there could be some sort of a reunification of getting the Baka boys back together? Do you think, is that possible?
They need it. Like they need to do it. They could get back together to lose out on the vote to the other 4, which would be a funny way for that reunion to happen. It is crazy thinking back to those guys getting together early on and talking about their feet, as Ellie and Janine talk about how they never get together, and now they might be the 3 that need each other. I just don't see where the other numbers, like whoever does this, like a pair needs to either win out or the pairs will unite. Like they can't do it just the 3 of them. So
would you say, is it fair to say it is unthinkable that Carla or Cassidy will turn on each other? Unthinkable, right?
Although Cassidy really should at a point, but maybe not now.
Okay. And Cody and Jesse, unthinkable to think that either of them would turn on each other. Yeah. Okay. So which of those duos potentially would be more likely to work with the Baka boys against the other duo?
I love that Baka boys is now a thing. It's like the Hardy boys, but better. I don't know. Well, see, Carla's coming back to the fact that Sammy and Owen wrote her name down. And I think that's or we're in like the split against her. Yeah, they both wrote her name down. So I think that's what Jesse's trying to achieve. It's like, do you want to work with them, who you have not been voting with, who've been voting for you? Or do you want to work with us, who are more threatening, but we've always had your back. We're going to keep you loyal. We're good shields. So we bring a lot to the table, even though we're like this other threatening pair. And if you take us out, then won't everyone just come for you after that? It's kind of like the predicament that Jesse vocalized in this episode. Like they could go for Carla here, and Carla's a huge threat. Have the numbers to take her out, even have the numbers to split against the idol that Jesse knows she has, requisite since when. But then he's right. Like they do it in, it's great. This is the tagline of of the season. But yeah, so then what happens? Like then Noel has her group. Gabler's really tight with her. Owen's tight with her. Sammy's going to go where the going's good. And then they're going to take out Vessi. So like instead of them being a swing between these numbers, which I think they could be next week, they're then like trying to paint Noel as a big target and like in this tug of war for numbers. So like that's why he didn't do it. Like he said that, and he was right. Like definitely take out Noel over Carla. And then next week it's going to be like a similar predicament. Like do we go for the bigger threats and leave ourselves like pretty vulnerable as the last pair left at 6? For Jesse and Cody, like maybe, because even if they get split on, they both have idols that could get them through. And then it's just like 5. One of them, like again, trickier path, I think, if you don't wait. but tools to get through that path. I think that's going to be the predicament of either pair. Like, A, who has the option? Like, who Buck are going with? And also, do you even want to do that? When you could take out someone like Sammy, who's such a huge threat in and of, like, he's a strategic threat. And I think probably the jury would be looking at it. They know what he's been doing. And then you stay safe till 6, and then, like, we go to war, and whoever wins, like, probably wins the season.
Yeah. It's super interesting that the two duos have all the idols in the game, of 3 idols between the 4 people in the duos. The 3 Baka boys on the bottom, they have no idols, no advantages. Really an interesting way
No
for things to
connection.
be,
Yeah.
shaken up here at the final 7. Let me ask you a question about the idols. Let's bring in our first voicemail of the game. And one of our longtime patrons, Webb, has a question.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Shannon. Webb from Chicago here. So excited that you'll be podcasting about Survivor together. Love to listen to both of you. My question is, when are we going to see an idol get played? No one's even trying to flush them yet. And we've got some big guns holding idols. It's theoretically possible that we could have Idolgeddon at Final 5, right? If somehow Carla and Cody and Jesse all make it to Final 5 without having played them yet, and one of the other 2 people sitting there has won immunity, that might be Jeff Probst's wet dream. But I suspect we're going to see him get played sooner. What do you think? Final 7, Final 6? Who's going to play their idol first? And is it going to result in an idol train where they all get flushed? Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, Webb. All right. Shannon, are we headed towards another advantage in this season?
I think votes will be split and idols will be flushed before then. But I will say, if it happens at 5 and the 3 of them play it, I don't know how, but it's definitely going to be Owen going home. Like, I feel like just in terms of, like, his journey as, like, the Charlie Brown of the season, like, don't you think he gets Idolgeddon out of the game?
Yeah, especially, like, I could see there being a situation where he feels like, all right, I finally got this. So, like,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
all worked out. Like, I'm going to be able to, this is all coming up Owen.
I know, poor Owen. I mean, like, Owen is in the trajectory that we don't usually, like, put super fans in, like an Eddie Fox level voting record. But, like, the worst part for Owen is that, like, he would be so aware of it. Like, he'd be on the island, like, is my voting record worse or better than Eddie Fox's? Like, the fact that, like, having the knowledge of that and being something you probably, like, really care about for a super fan who can tell you, like, any challenge from Tree Mail must be, like, the most painful thing. And to have it, like, again in the, like, he gets a win last week but doesn't even vote, but it works out. And then this week to, like, go right back to getting, like, the football pulled. Yeah, so I don't know how, but I think narratively 100% he's going in an Idolgeddon at 5 if it happens.
Yeah. Okay, so if it doesn't happen before an advantage yeah, I do wonder if the duos end up working together here for these next couple of votes, that I feel like that we won't see idols played if the duos are working together.
Yeah, but I think 6 for me would be the time to turn, unless you are someone like Cassidy. Like, to put yourself in Cassidy's shoes, she doesn't have the same moves she needs to make as Carla. Like, she needs to actually take Carla out in, like, stunning fashion. I feel like Marianne style with Oma, right? So she needs to do that at a point, like, probably before Fire. She needs to take out definitely Jesse and Carla, and, like, a Cody or a Sammy to sit at the end and, like, do it in, like, really impressive fashion. And then I think she'd have a really good shot. But, like, at what point will she break from Carla in that? Because it's definitely something she should do. Cody, I think less so. I think a Cody Jesse Final Tribal Council would be a more even race, something quite interesting, because Cody has, like, a nice broy jury. Like, I think James would vote for him, Ryan would vote for him. He's got a big personality. But for Cassidy, I think like, Carla has definitely been leading that, and she cannot sit with Carla. So, like, at what point do you cut her?
Well, can I just ask that question from Cassidy's perspective? If you're on the island and you're Cassidy, are you, and of course, everybody is the hero of their own narrative, and, you know, you're Cassidy, you just won an immunity challenge. Carla won the last immunity when we were split into groups of 5. Do you think that Cassidy looks at it, not having the confessionals, that not seeing the edited television show, do you feel like that Cassidy thinks that it might be such a disproportionate matchup between her and Carla in the final 3?
She has had some really good awareness early about, like, how people perceive her and play. And she even said, like, play a quiet game until you, like, come out loud at the
Mhm.
end, which has definitely been like the trajectory of the new era and how to play. I
Right.
think she would know to do that, especially like as a fan. I think she would feel that she needs with like a modern jury some like big loud move, and like that move has to be cutting her number one in Carla.
But
Like to sit with Carla is at least very risky.
I mean, the one season that she has watched right before she came out here is Survivor 41. Did Erica have that one big move in the game?
I mean, yeah, you would attribute the final five of like having won that challenge and like taking out
I guess she
Ricard.
won. Yeah, I guess she won the final five.
Yeah. I kind of feel like everyone knew the way 42 played out, but they hadn't seen it, so they wouldn't necessarily know like the machinations that went into like Marianne, like doing what she did against Oma and like how impressive that was. But like again, it's like actually a gameplay that Cassidy like laid out at the beginning of the season. It's like a good way to play if you
The
are
fox, she
perceived.
said, not any fox.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that it's something that she could think is the right thing to do. The issue is like there are the really big part I think with this season is like a lot of people have like extreme claim at a final three. So I kind of like last season, maybe people weren't looking as well as like someone like Romeo seemed like an obvious goat. Possibly Jonathan wouldn't have had so much love from the jury. Like there was these big red flags with the way like Mike was seeing his game. Like it felt like there were people there you could get with and beat. And maybe Gabler is that. Like Owen we like could be an underdog if he can like argue that he fought his way there. Like even he would have like claim to it. So it's really hard because I don't feel like there are a lot of like easy beats. So you have to like do more to sit next to two people and talk about like why you should get it over the others.
So I want to go back to Noel and the move that she made last week where, okay, so Noel, she does the vote steal, makes the big move, gets James voted out of the game. She ultimately ends up going out this week. There's definitely some conversation about how she had just raised her threat level. Do you feel like that Jesse has gotten any sort of a bump to his threat level after the way this Noel vote was conducted? And do you think that there is an increased likelihood he could be the person who goes home?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, because Gabler's already talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like, you have to lean into being a threat. Like, there's no point hiding the fact that Jesse and Cody, especially as a duo, are really big threats. But it becomes about, like, being a threat versus offering people like Kyle and Cassidy safety. Like, you gotta, like, look, I'm a threat. You're a threat. We're all, like, threats here. So, like, let's do the
Mm-hmm.
lion versus hyena thing. Like, let's keep each other safe. Because if you want to take me out as a threat, you can do it. But if you don't think that then Cody or, will go with the Barker Boys next time and vote you out and be able to split against any type of idol, maybe you get to 5 without your idol, and then you're probably going to 5. Like, is that something you want to do, or do you want to keep it around so that you can hold on to your idol a little longer so that you can get to the end? Like, I think you have to have a pretty frank conversation about the fact that, like, we're the threats in this game, and we're also very loyal to each other, and we have numbers. And if we don't do this, it's probably going to be the Barker Boys at the end. Like, they're probably taking us all out at a point, and it's going to be fire best for one of us. So I think there's a lot of merit to sticking together despite how threatening they are. And that's the kind of logic I would be using if I was, Jesse and Carla, because they are both such logical players. And I think there's a lot of actual merit there.
I certainly think that Jesse is not looking at taking out Carla. I wonder, do you think that Carla will be looking at Jesse as that kind of threat who she may need to take out before we get down to 5 or 4?
Yes, but it's 6. If I was Carla, I think, all right, Gabler's on my side, and Jesse thinks he has Gabler, even better. I can, maybe pick up Owen, who has been betrayed by Jesse time and time again. Like, I haven't betrayed him. I've just been, like, on the other side. So we'll do that. We'll split at 6. The issue is that they both have idols. It's that secret idol thing at 6 that might be Carla's undoing. Like, that idol steal could prove pivotal. If I was Carla, I would be thinking 6 is the time. But that's because she doesn't know that they would be so protected and they could just win out on their 2 votes. So
it is so interesting that you have those 3 Baka boys who are in the game right now. And, you could have a situation where if at any point you decide, okay, I am going to take out Jesse. First off, you could free up Cody, who is going to now go after or go with one of those guys if you leave them.
You just took out Jesse, 100%.
If you take out Jesse, yeah.
Yeah.
And so he could potentially work with, we saw, remember him and Sammy painting the boat. We've seen him and Gabler get along. Not sure what kind of a bond that Owen and Cody have, if any, in the game. We haven't really seen that one at all. But also each of those guys are immunity threats in their own way. And on the other side of things, you have the situation where potentially, okay, let's say Sammy goes and maybe even Owen goes after that. Imagine that final five where basically everything's coming up Gabler, where the two duos are both like in like desperate, trying to, so like Gabler, no, come with us here, boy, come on. And both sides are like calling him like, Gabler, who do you love the most? And of course, and then you have the specter of all the idols also.
Yeah, that would be a great day for Gabler. Gabler could decide which pair he gets 0 votes next to. Like, that's an important decision to make. Like, he would be deciding who wins the game. It wouldn't be Gabler, but it would probably be one of Jesse or Carla. I don't think I'd leave it to 5. I think like 6 is the perfect day. But the thing is that Carla and Jesse, it's such an interesting thing when you have these two players, like, and we see it all the time. Think about like Jeremy and Josh, like two like enemies, they're at this point are allies, but they're equally matched, really. Like, they're both incredible players, and they can predict the other one because it's probably what they would do. So then do you want to get in earlier because you know that you would shoot next, so now you have to shoot early, but now you both know that. So
hypothetically though, if you're Cassidy and Carla and you want to do this at 6, let's say, okay, Sammy goes out at final 7. Okay, they agree. So now, but now you've still left, Gabler and Owen in the game with Cody. And if you're Carla and Cassidy, you risk, and yes, Carla does have an idol, but you do risk the possibility that you could be outnumbered by the combination of Cody, Owen, and Gabler at the final 5.
Yeah. I think it's very, very risky. Like, I think that the predicament ahead of them is just safety versus the threat level of the other players. So I don't know. I think maybe I'm a conservative player. I'd stick to safety. I like feeling safe, and I think that it's a big thing that Cody and Jesse have never flipped on Carla and Cassidy. That's a core. I think the best thing that Carla got out of last week, other than, well, I mean, like, considering that it wasn't her agency, as we're finding out, it's not something she actually wanted to do. We spent like the whole week, was this a good move for Carla? Like, she didn't even want to do it. But what she got, she lost an ally, she lost a shield. But the best part about that was that she lost it without Jesse and Cody being forced to make a move against Coco. Like, if James is still around, do they vote out Cassidy in their group's tribal council? Do they go for Coco now, who are now much more threatening? Maybe they do. And then you have to like pick up the pieces of that relationship. But instead, Jesse comes back. He's like, I like the way that both of those tribal councils worked out. Like, now my dirty work was done for me. James is out of the game. Like, that's not as threatening a faction. I'm happy to move forward with them without feeling like I'm being overwhelmed by them. And no one had to turn on each other, and now you can just be loyal to each other, and they like have that trust because they weren't like pushed into that position. So I think that was a good thing for Carl and Jesse's relationship, and they have this like great working relationship going forward.
Shannon, I had felt like all through this post merge that Carla and Jesse, I felt like we're on this collision course where eventually, yes, they're working together. They were part of the big group of like at 11 and at 12, and they're working together. And Jesse said, I got a good relationship with Carla, but I felt like, okay, but eventually this thing's going to crack, and these two are going to be on different sides, and we're going to see them go after each other. But in a lot of these scenarios that we've talked about, that if they go after each other, that mutually assured destruction is a possibility. And so I just wonder if the specter of, this Cold War of that, if they go after each other, might actually lead them to get to the final 3 with each other. And I guess maybe
that would
not
take it far.
It'd be wild. I mean, really, it's not quite like Dominic and Wendell, but it would be very interesting to see these two in the final 3. That would be a very interesting vote.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely on a collision course because there are these like 2 poles in the game that are just like again, like these equally weighted things that at a point only one of them can win. So is that going to be in the votes that the collision course comes out? Is it going to be at fire? Is it going to be at a final tribal council? I'm not super sure. But if you even see, like, when Jesse's talking about not voting for Carla here as the swing vote, as the option that he has, he's not like, no, I really like Carla, I don't want her to go home. He's like, if we take out Carla, they'll definitely come for us next, which they 100% would. Like, those 4, maybe even with Cassidy, would just turn right against them. who would be a pair, and Noel and Owen are a pair, but Noel and Owen now have like these other connections that they can come for them, and they're not as threatening. And instead, they have to keep in this other really threatening thing, like this other clear block, who can take some of the distraction. Like even if Sammy doesn't go next week, like at least maybe they'll all go for Carla. Like and maybe that'll be the other threat, and it won't necessarily be Jesse. So it's a very interesting conundrum. It's very classic. It's to really be thinking about when's the time to make the move, the timing of it all. And like Tony would say, you want to go early rather than late. So that would mean next week. But in saying that, it's a scary thing to jump off from when you have that safety and you know that four can just move through the game and hope to take each other out. But they both have so much to protect against that. Like it's very, very tough. And I think I would prioritize safety, but I would also kind of understand not doing that. Yeah, and that's how Gabler wins. Like when you all take each other out, like, and that's like, and then like someone will emerge from that, like from the chaos of that, and win. And it won't be either of them at that point, probably.
All right. We have our exit interview coming up on Monday this week. We haven't gotten to do that yet. Danielle Doby wants to ask, if Shannon was doing the exit interview with Noel on Monday, what question would you ask? Do you have one burning question for Noel?
Yeah. I tend to go to like relationships. That's like a big thing I ask for an exit interview. So my thing would be, where do we get back to with Jesse? Again, since when Jesse is saying that he has this good relationship with Noel, my question would be how and why? Like he turned on you with Justine, then they kind of get back together. All right. Then like he turns on you, like he turns on Bessie, takes out Dwight. And the reason she was blindsided here is because she like so much trusts Jesse and Cody. Despite the fact that she had like zero reason to do that because they have only ever betrayed her at every turn, other than that like one NECA vote. So I would be very interested, and I hope that you can ask, Rob, like the relationship with Jesse, how do they get back so much on the same page in her mind that she trusts him here to do this move?
Okay. Great question. I will ask that to Noel, assuming I do not have any sort of major brain fart between now and Monday. Let me ask you a question about something Noel did in this episode. And she won the reward, and she had to choose some people to come with her on the reward. Here's Josh Green.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Shannon. Josh Green calling in here. Wanted to talk about choices in this past week's episode. So we see Noel. She picks almost half the tribe to join her on the reward. And we see she picks Sammy, Jesse, and Owen to join her. Now, my question for you guys is, was her reward performance too large and it wouldn't have mattered who she took with her on the reward? Or could there have been some sort of better pick for her to where Noel could have stayed in the game had she picked different people to go on a reward, and more importantly, people to be left back at camp? Because we've seen in different Survivor seasons all over the world that sometimes the people who are left back at camp can end up being the ones who take the day in the vote. So they can end up being just as important as the people who go on reward. So would love to hear your thoughts. Shannon, was an absolute pleasure meeting you and Peter in person, my friend, and I hope you're doing so well. Thanks.
Aww.
Bye.
Yeah.
So nice.
Okay. So a lot to unpack with that question. Of course, Noel, she won the Sanctuary Reward, got to pick a lot of people to go with her to enjoy some of the following.
Pizza, all the things you want from home, including love.
Love. Okay. And we didn't really talk about this, but I mean, this is kind of like going back to like remember when Ron Clark won the family reward and then got voted out in that same episode? Really, people really like, oh, Ron Clark really picked the wrong people to go. I think he left Victoria out, and she really was like, hey, we got to vote out Ron Clark. This one, like the call was coming from inside the house. Like I feel like that the move to we have to get rid of Noel happened to come from, I feel like, Jesse, who was invited to go on this trip.
Yeah. I think underrated in Survivor history are like these reward group fails. There was something in Australian Survivor where the person kept winning rewards and every group was like, we're the taco group, we're the this group. Like every reward, they became that reward group and it worked out 0 times. And it was always hilarious to me that it's like, yeah, we're going to bond over like this type of food that we're all eating together. And like they don't. That's just like at the end of the day, especially when it's in teams, like a random group of people. I think for Noel, like, I don't know that I would have taken Owen. Like, even he was like, you really didn't have to do this because Owen is like perfect eyes and ears. He'd never expect, like, he totally understands that you're leaving him behind as an ally. But then Gabler, it seems, filled that position. Like, I would have maybe taken Gabler instead of Owen, but he totally got it. He brought her all the information. He was more aligned to her than I think, like, I realized at the time. So I don't know that it's like hugely the problem with who she took. I think what was hard for Noel is that she made the vote steal move. And like when advantages aren't getting used a lot, like the fact that it was like used for a purpose that was inventive and cool and blindsided James last week as much as it was undercut by Sammy telling Carla, like that's threatening. And then like 12 hours later, she does the challenge. And so like if you think about like the close proximity of those two like very threatening things, like that probably sent her over the edge. And she has been on the bottom. She hasn't had the connections. Like if you're weighing up loyalty versus threat level, like she didn't like have enough connections to like be bigger than her threat level. And like Jessie doesn't trust that she's not going to come from next week. She probably does. Like she's working from a minority position like everyone is, but she's so threatening. And I was wondering, like, why did Noel go earlier? When Janine went, I was like, I would have taken out Noel. Like, she has an advantage. She has, like, she seems to be, like, more of an agitator who can get things done, can obviously win challenges, like, huge jury threat. I kind of was amazed that she lasted this long, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of why there might have been sentiment to get rid of, a Dwight or even a Janine ahead of Noel. Maybe she just had good like social relationships. Yeah, so definitely a fair question to ask. I'm not sure.
Well, for Dwight, I think it ended up making sense. Like, I think the women didn't want to get rid of another woman. I think that Cody seemed to want Dwight out. And then eventually, like, Jessie had the idol from Dwight. So he kind of became like a uniquely kind of individually perfect target for everyone. And then for Janine, I mean, I don't know. Like, she was seen as like the easy vote. But they knew Noel didn't have it, like, had a vote steal and not an idol. Like, I would rather take out a bigger threat because then Janine can't pull what Noel did the next time, like maybe like not like Sammy flipped anyway, but like seems like there's less to play again. So I was confused. I think Noel seemed to have really good connections. Like she was on the bottom, but she's working with James, like in the blind side, like he trusts her enough to do that. So it seemed like she was on the bottom, but like was always in the conversations.
Shannon, I was a little surprised in this episode. There was so much talk about from women talking about voting out the other women, and I thought this was something that was coming up when we saw Cassidy, get, very, be very passionate about it. I didn't want to vote out Janine, and maybe in hindsight that turned out to be more about I do not like Ryan. I want to make sure that Ryan is voted out of the game and not Janine. But I kind of see it a little bit more from Carla and Cassidy's perspective of, hey, Noel is somebody we cannot beat. It makes no sense for us to go to the end of the game. With Noel, she is an unbeatable person if she gets to the final 3. But why was Noel very focused on, I have to go after Carla and Cassidy? It feels like to me that, especially after Carla wrote down James's name, that maybe Carla, there was like maybe a missed opportunity for, at least Noel, maybe Noel and Owen to get with Carla and Cassidy are just 2 from Coco. Like, why wasn't there more of an opportunity for them to work together?
I just think they haven't had like the connective tissue. Like they've been on these opposite sides and it makes sense then to go for Coco, who at this point happened to be Carla and Cassidy. Like we've seen them working at odds the entire season. There's been no connection there. So I mean, this is something I've been talking about in terms of like the women getting voted out and like the pattern of that. Because I've been very like high on the fact that like it's important to give the players agency, like especially diverse players. And this is like one of the most diverse casts we've seen, and especially women, because like the women get particular hate when they vote each other out or target each other. And I just find that so ironic that like feminism is attacking women for the choices that they make in the strategic game. Like, I think what you see is that you can have the best of intentions and the best value system, and your every intention, as Cassidy's has been, can be to vote out men and not let other women go. But then you're on the opposite side of like the other woman left and she's super threatening. And like it's a credit to her that she's that threatening. Like it's a compliment.
Yeah.
And I've really been kind of pushing the fact that it's been hard to see like the hate that this cast has been given. And like the point of the diversity initiative has been to let players play with freedom and like prioritize and highlight their agency in the incredible stories we're getting from people like Jessie, Carla, Cassidy, Owen. Like those are important in their own right. So I think we see like as much as Cassidy and Carla and Noel have probably not enjoyed that pattern, they have to go after each other for their best interest, and they have to put their agency and their best interest first when you're playing for $1 million. Like, you know, I think like the way social media looks at it is like, you know, this value system should come before $1 million. And I just think that's unrealistic and unfair. You know, like they're going to have to play their best game for themselves.
Yeah.
And there seems to have been no connective tissue between Noel and, you know, Carla and Cassidy. So we see it come out here, and it's kind of ironic because it's like, it's a move for women. It takes out Noel, but it puts Carla and Cassidy in a better position. And like their agency is important too. So
I just wonder, maybe did Noel only have a relationship with James where James felt good enough about working with Noel? And I asked James about this in the exit interview, and he said, Noel was willing to throw Janine under the bus. So I felt like, okay, she's working with us. And obviously, like James felt comfortable enough to have her go ahead and steal Owen's vote and go ahead and do that whole plan. So maybe it was James who was sort of like
she
closer.
Vote out James. like how close could they have been when she didn't immediately vote him out? But I guess there weren't really that many.
I'm just trying to say that maybe there was no relationship with Carla and Noel, because the thing is, like, after, and this was a miss on my part, and I was talking about this on the know-it-alls, that I really felt like that after Carla wrote down James's name, I kind of felt like that the 4 people that were at that tribal council, and then plus Cassidy, were what that was going to be a 5. That was going to be a group, and instead it was almost like everybody bent over backwards to try to get back working with Jesse after that tribal council. And kudos to Jesse in the game that he's playing. But it just, I didn't understand why the people that had voted together just then weren't potentially talking about, like, could we move forward and work together?
But they didn't vote together. Like they voted together.
I guess
like,
so. Yes.
You know, I think that's a big.
That's
like,
what I missed. Yeah.
They intended to leave Carla out of the vote, and that doesn't happen to Carla. You know, like Carla was like, "Wow, this is like the first time that they intended to blindside me." Noel and Owen did. Like, I think it's hard to come back for that. I mean, if you look at like the journey of that relationship, Noel was like hardcore working against Coco from the pre-merge, and somehow like didn't even connect with James through the trek. But she and Owen got really, really tight from that. Then they, you know, from like Noel seemed to not even want to vote out Ellie. Owen didn't. So they seem like they were already on different sides of that. And then Coco get in this big majority and are taking out Dwight, Janine, like all of their allies, and barely sparing them. And then they get onto a vote where they didn't vote together. I think that's what's like important. Like if Noel and Owen come to Carla and are like, we really want to trust you on this, like let's make a new group. That could be something. But instead, like their every intention was to blindside her. So like that's like an act of war for Carla. Like I don't see how she's coming back from that. And they didn't even, like they were mad at Sammy that he even told her. So they don't want to work with her. Like they were just on 2 opposite sides from this entire game. And that's a positioning that Jesse has really been able to capitalize on. Like he's been flipping on like his allies, and they still trust him more because they've just been in like closer proximity to him and had like way more of a working relationship, even within the betrayals.
Let's go to another voicemail, and I want to ask about what is going on with the original Vesey idol and what is happening there. Let's go ahead and bring in a question from Karen.
Hi, Rob. Hey, Shannon. This is Karen from Australia. First time caller, long time listener. Just wanted to say, firstly, Shannon, I think you are so amazing. As an Australian woman, you make me so proud that everything you've done in your career and your podcasting, I just think you are fantastic.
Oh.
And I can't wait to hear your takes on Australian Survivor later on this year. My second hot take I have is Jessie has 2 idols, and it's been shown a lot on this episode about him having two idols. What happens if he gets wind of him being in trouble next week and he plays Cody's idol instead of Janine's idol? He could smooth over his relationship with Cody, and then he'll still have an idol that nobody knows about. What do you guys think? All right. Love the podcast. Thanks. Bye.
Okay.
So
Shannon,
thank you, Karen.
I keep saying to myself, like, well, I mean, Jesse must have gotten, Cody's idol back to Cody by this point, right? It just happened off screen. But Jesse seems to have mentioned a couple times that he still has Cody's idol. You don't think that Jesse could play Cody's idol, do you?
What if he goes mad with power and votes out Cody to like fully have the idol? And people still won't be calling him a villain. Like Jesse could murder someone next week and people will be like, he's not really a villain. Like he's doing the most at the moment. But even if he doesn't, even if like Cody gets it back, there's every chance like Cody, if he thinks Jesse's in trouble and there's like no split, it could be the hold up bro moment that Malcolm had with Reynolds. You know, like that Cody's like, oh, let me play my idol for you. This is the one idol we had. And then Jesse like has this other secret idol. Because now that we know that they even know about Carla's idol, the fact that Jesse has such a secret idol for the only time other than Marianne's secret idol in the new era is just like a ridiculous advantage. Like the fact that it's not public in this era where everything is public. Like that's what we said about Marianne last time when she handed in her idol to Jeff and then found the next one. It was like, wow, this is a huge gain. Like the secrecy of that is huge. And it was such a big moment for her at Final Tribal Council. Like for Jesse now, knowing that Carla's is secret, or not secret anymore, and the people are aware of it and suspicious of it, for it to be that secret, like there's so many things he could do that just because everyone else isn't working with that information. Like that's the biggest thing that Carla doesn't have against Jesse right now.
Yeah. So do we think that Jesse will give the idol back to Cody?
There's no not giving it back. Like what does that look like? What is that fight? Like you either vote him out, which I don't think you'll do, and take it.
Especially because knowledge is power isn't in the game anymore.
Why does he have it? Knowledge is power. Because you would expect, and you'd be right too, if you're a player, that knowledge is power is back in the game before James has even had his torch snuffed. Like, Jeff has put it in someone's canteen while you weren't looking.
Well, Shannon, there is, I don't know how much you talk about the previews, but did you have to watch the preview for this next episode?
The preview? Like the next time on? Or is there like a different?
Yes.
Yeah, I watched the next time on.
Okay.
Yeah, like what?
Next time on Survivor, it looks like that there is a boat that is coming, and it seems as though the boat or something, having to do with the boat, it seems like that there will be some sort of advantage that is going to be added to the game. You don't think? No, you don't think the third time's the charm, do you?
Oh my God, they can't. That would be comical at this point. I would be in it for like at that point. I think they would throw it in the fire. Like how could you not throw it in the fire? Like, they wouldn't. But what else would it be? This close to the end, like things are expiring.
Yeah, Alyssa mentions an idol nullifier. Is that possible? 3 idols out there in the game. Do you think that production could say, okay, well, why don't we slip the idol nullifier in there?
It is funny because I feel like knowledge is power is like production's favorite child for some reason. It's like the terrible child that gets like all the attention. And then the nullifier was left out of the edit of last season. Like that's like the kid that doesn't get any attention. So if this is the one that's
middle
like
child,
put in the game. Yeah. And then what's, I guess, the youngest child? The idol? The little one. I don't know. There's like the idol's the one you can rely on. It's like basically going to be around. Yeah. And the nullifier, like people forget, like the nullifier, it feels like, wow, we really haven't seen that since Janet. We didn't think they'd put it back in. Like Parvati had a nullifier in Winners at War, and it's like the Mandela effect that's gone now. And then 41, we think maybe Xander missed it, although it was probably knowledge is power. And then last season, they edited out of the entire season, which was a crazy thing for them to do. So maybe someone has a nullifier as we speak, and it was just not put into the edit.
Yeah. Maybe that the Survivor producers are waiting for an all-star season, and then they will show us by way of flashback that Omer actually had an idol nullifier in season 42, and this was just sort of like a fancy edit trick. So you'd be really surprised in the future season that Omer plays again.
Yeah. Well, that would be like a long game, but it's cool that they want to play it. I'm also now thinking, wait, so Jesse has Cody's idol because of it could be stolen at any point and they want to like keep it moving. But Jesse, it's like he's very open with the fact. Like he says to Noel, his cover story is I was giving Cody back his idol. I guess now, so the trick is now people think Cody has his idol again, but Jesse still has it.
Right. So then when they try to acknowledge his power and then gets Cody and get the idol back, but Jesse still has it. That's the brilliance of this.
Yeah.
That's
Except
the
Jesse's
ultimate
also
trick.
voting out Cody to steal the idol.
Okay. So Shannon, how closely have you been following my tweets from earlier tonight?
I saw them.
You saw them.
I don't know how.
Okay.
You tweeted one time and I saw the tweet pretty closely.
All right. How closely did you follow the answers to that tweet?
I saw it. Yeah, I saw it.
Okay.
I saw it.
All right. All right. So then let's talk this through. In another lifetime, this would have been a game. But
oh wait, no. Oh, I don't think I remember everyone.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. Well, let's
sorry.
Let's,
oh my God,
let's talk this through because I think it's worth an interesting discussion. Okay.
Yeah.
So Noel was voted out of the game, and of course, Noel had a really amazing episode here tonight. Jeff was so impressed with, and as were we all, how she did in the challenge. She was voted out. That Jesse says it was a total respect vote. And when Noel was voted out of the game, we got a little bit of a different treatment for a Survivor player, that there is a special music cue that Survivor uses to denote a important or sort of like emotionally uplifting person has been voted out of the game. This is a music cue which first premiered in Survivor Game Changers. And I could play a little bit of it for you just to refresh your memory. But this is the music cue. Okay. It's like, all right, Noel, that's enough. Bring me your torch. Okay. Swells. Okay.
It's dramatic.
Very dramatic, emotional music cue for only Survivor's most beloved players in the game.
Yeah.
And so it first appears in Survivor Game Changers. Now, it first shows up in the Zeke Tribal Council, which I had always thought of this as the music when Suri gets voted out, advantage getting. I guess it first occurs in the Zeke Jeff Varner Tribal Council, which maybe many of us have tried to forget about.
It's weird, though. Don't you think it's weird that they're calling it the Suri music and not the Jeff Varner music? Like, I can't imagine why they wouldn't want that brand.
It's a little, I guess, a Mandela effect there as well. But
and let it be that. Let's let that lie. Let's maybe take it out of the canon and say that it was first Suri.
So I was interested to see, okay, and Noel, this music plays when Noel gets voted out of the game. And I was interested to see, boy, how many players have gotten the special Survivor, the Suri music, the special music cue? How many Survivor players have gotten this? And it's an interesting list of players that have gotten the special music here. And so I have to give credit. I asked for this. I was trying to work out the list, and I would have never gotten this list on my own. But
Sam couldn't have done that in an hour, gone through every single tribal council in Survivor history. And like,
well, look, we don't need to explore that right here, Shannon. Okay.
Well,
all right. So I do want to give credit to at ITYS Survive. I think you should survive on Twitter, who was able to find the full list, which I guess was posted in the comments for this music cue. It is called Humane by Vanacore Music. I believe is it David Vanacore? Is that the composer?
I feel wildly unprepared for a music thing in Survivor when I have an actual degree in music, and I think like a kind of
Aaron
degree in
Robertson.
Survivor. Yeah, I don't. I should be way more prepared for this.
Okay, so this music cue first appears in season 34 Game Changers, and
Suri. Yeah.
Okay, with Suri. Okay,
pretty much.
So it takes a season off in HHH. Ironically, a season full of heroes and healers and hustlers. No one is deemed worthy enough to get the special music.
Because Ben won. Like if Ben got voted out, don't you think
Maybe Ben might have gotten it. Okay.
Yeah.
But the music would return in season 36 in Ghost Island. There was one player that was special enough to get the special music in season 36. Shannon, do you remember who it was?
I mean, I looked at the list this morning.
Yes.
Who? I'm trying to think about who.
One Ghost Island player was special enough to get this beautiful music when they were voted out.
I'm gonna guess Michael Yerger.
No, it was not Michael Yerger.
I felt sad when he went.
Okay.
I don't know. Who was heroic in Ghost Island?
Hey, yo, Rabio.
Yes, it was Kellen.
Oh.
Kellen, and
But like, was that
because
so
she
sad?
learned so
Kellen.
much about herself and the
Okay.
game.
Okay,
She followed her gut.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
That's really especially when you have like a growth experience on Survivor, you get the special music. Okay. You have won the game, even if you are not the winner.
Well, I mean, Sari, like that was like a hard, like that was, I think, transcendent. Like I would have waited. I mean, I love Kellen, but I guess it depends. Like when it was for Jeff Varner, like anyone could get it, like Varya's in the toilet. But like,
I think what they were going for was there was some sort of a growth that happened. Yeah.
No. Oh no. Oh, that's what they were. Oh well, they really run the music from the beginning.
I
music
think
is cursed.
I think that there was like there was like learning that happened, and so
the music was meant to honor the learning.
I think so. I think that's what that's what they were going for. Everybody was growing and learning at that tribal council.
It's good to learn at other people.
We were trying to go out on like a little bit of a positive note. Okay.
And I think that learning has
that way.
been and I think
it turns out we learned that some people learned nothing that day.
But nothing was learned. Some people learned. Maybe some viewers learned. But
maybe
I don't
viewers
think the person
learned.
in question learned anything.
Certainly, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But we don't need to explore this any further. Okay.
Yeah, that night
in season 37, there was one special player who Survivor thought was worthy of the beautiful music.
Christian.
Yes. Christian.
Growth arc,
of course.
like anything.
All right. So this is how, and it's almost like the Sia Award, basically. This is like the music cue equivalent of the Sia Award. There was one person in Survivor, the edge of extinction, who was worthy of the special music. Do you know who it was?
I know who got the Sia Award.
Yeah.
Lots of people, everyone got the Sia Award that season.
Yeah.
Who was worthy?
Yep.
Victoria?
No.
I'm at a loss.
This is
I don't remember that whole season.
The biggest head scratcher on the list, or up there.
Oh well, it should have been Devon's. Like
it should have been, and that was a very emotional tribal council. The first time that Rick Devens went, the first time Rick Devens went out,
the second time,
or the second time, it was actually Big Wendy.
Really?
Big Wendy got the music.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it kind of was like the Sia Award. I mean, like imagine saying to a player like, okay, it's like the Sia Award, except instead of getting money, you get the music we first played when Jeff Varner might have learned something but didn't. Like it's kind of like the Sia Award, but no money. Yeah.
No money. Okay. In season 39, 2 players got it.
I know this. Janet.
Yes. That is one.
I think, wow, I read this list so badly this morning. Karishma?
No.
Well, that's what it should have been. Man, these seasons have been just erased from my mind.
Especially when it's about growth of like, oh, I came out here, I didn't have anything, and I filled my cup up. Yeah.
This is absolutely not helping.
Yes. Elaine.
Oh, Elaine, yeah.
Elaine got it also.
Oh,
Elaine also got Sia money, and so did Janet.
Yeah,
so,
there you go.
It is similar. I believe that actually from what we saw on the show, I believe it was in back-to-back tribal councils, I believe, for Elaine and for Janet.
Make a choice. Back to back. What's the point anymore? Not everyone can be that inspiring. Space it out.
Okay. All right. In season 40, the winners were at war, and only one person, it. Yes.
Yeah, I remember from the list. Because I remember thinking, that was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Denise.
Yep, because she had to endure and let go, and again, she grew. Denise grew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all grew. Ben
We all
grew.
grew. Mhm.
He bowed out.
Yeah.
You'd think I
Okay.
don't know.
In
Anyone else?
season 41. Okay, this one's a little tricky. Okay.
Yeah.
This one's a little bit of a trick one because that I think that you might be tempted to say Shan. Shan actually got a unique music cue from what I understand. That is not this music, but it was special music that was and maybe an original for Shan. I don't know if it was like a Shantham remix. It was not this music cue.
Wow. The music department were working overtime with Shan.
Yes. Okay. Do you know who it was that got it?
Ricard, was it?
Ricard.
Yeah, it should have been Ricard. That makes sense.
Ricard. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And especially sometimes I think they go to this also when it's like a foregone conclusion that you are going to be the one getting voted out. There's really nothing you can do. And it's just that you're so good. We're all voting for you. And there's no drama here on the vote. It's a respect vote. It's you. And that's the case with Ricard. Okay.
Like it's originator.
Right.
3. It's just 3.
3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Season 42, one person got it. Do you know?
It should have been Omar, I feel. Like that for me. I guess not Drea. Jonathan?
See, I thought it was Drea also, but maybe
was it Drea?
I thought it was that Drea.
But
did
Drea
get
was
it,
had that whole moment where she's like talking
yeah,
for like 10
I'm not
minutes.
sure. I would have said Drea, but I think that maybe she might have gotten her own like original music cue. It was not this specific music.
Okay, I don't know who it was.
Lindsay. Again, same as Ricard. It's like, like if we didn't vote you out now, you'd win the game. Yeah. Okay. All right. Then, okay. Now, and here's where it's this is also interesting footnote. Okay. So we just told you how it was Noel who got it in season 42. But Shannon, this is not the first time in season 42. There was another player who got the special music.
Yeah. NECA.
Yeah.
But for sure, because it was such a, like, they voted out their mom and like the respect.
NECA. It was so great. Yes.
Yeah. Do you know who gets us in Australian Survivor?
Who?
Every single person. The music in Australian Survivor, it could be like the most ridiculously unimportant vote ever, and the music will be like, dun, like it's like people have complained that the volume is off. Like
yes. You know,
so.
all of the greats, Sari, Christian, Ricard, Lindsay, NECA.
I love you going through and cherry picking from the list, like, and like you started to say a name and we're like, no, Ricard, yeah,
Big Wendy.
Like they play this music so much, it's starting to lose all meaning.
Yeah, I like that only one person a season gets it. That should be the rule. One person gets it.
No, you can't. You can't.
Why?
Because that's a spoiler. Because, like, if you think, wow, this, like, for example, if there was only going to be once and NECA got it, and you know there's someone like Noel, you'd be like, I guess Noel wins.
Okay. Could we get it a third time? If there, and who would it be, Shannon?
Carla.
If we hear the music a third time, Carla?
Yeah.
I'm just wondering. I feel like that Carla would be a great candidate to get it, but since we've already gotten it twice, does this increase the likelihood that, first of all, we've never seen it happen at a Final Four fire making? Does it predispose that maybe Carla and Jesse, the two most likely people to get the special music, could be headed to at least the Final Four?
No, I think it shows that the music has lost all meaning and everyone gets it now, and it's just like they're not trying to space it out.
Yes.
They gave it to NECA.
Yes. Okay. Little H wants to know, Rob, who should have gotten it in the Amazon?
Please.
We
know this.
You do?
You. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Christy.
Is there anybody else that you think should have gotten it? Is there anybody else?
Yeah, you can think of. Yeah.
If you think of anybody else, who would it be?
Yeah.
Are we good? Okay. All right. So let's go back to Tribal Council a little bit, because Jeff was really trying to work the crowd. We've talked a lot about all of the analogies that Jeff has been trying to
Love them.
work through. Shannon, how much have analogies invaded International Survivor?
Wow,
Is there a
that's
lot
such a
of
good question. I'm not tracking it
analogy
enough.
talk from
Not as much as
JPL,
the US.
JLP?
JLP.
Yeah.
JLP. I mean, tribal
And
councils are
Nico.
long in Australian Survivor. Like they are 20 minutes. They feel like even longer sometimes. It's very long. But I think more just like general questioning. The analogy thing, because I was listening to you and Christian a couple weeks ago, and you were like, what could we do? What can we how can we change this up? And
Yeah.
I was like, I think what's getting missed is that Jeff doesn't think this is something that needs to be changed.
No, he loves it.
Like, yeah, he loves it. So he's asking those questions and they're putting in the content that they think is good. If Jeff were to be like, yeah, people aren't loving this, let's go away, it would be like the easiest change ever. You just ask different questions and just include different content.
I will say, I did think that Jeff did a pretty good job at one point with this at the Tribal Council, where Gabler starts talking about how everybody here is like, everybody's basically they're locked and loaded, and now you don't hear them coming. And then and Jeff called. I saw you point. Who are you pointing to? And then Gabler's like, no,
the royal
everybody. Yeah, the royal pointing. So I did feel like that Jeff asked one pointed question at that Tribal Council,
literally,
which I did appreciate. But otherwise, it was a lot of analogy talk. And so let's get into the week in analogies here at Tribal Council, because we had a lot. All right. Jeff talked about to Jesse about we were talking about what is it like. Jeff wanted to know if it's like this.
Jesse, it's a little bit like you're negotiating to buy a car, but you never get to sign the contract, which locks it in. It's always just like, no, we're good. We're good. You don't need to sign anything.
Okay. Shannon, is this something that happens? You go to buy a car and you, the customer, are looking to get locked in on a contract.
Yeah.
And the people who are selling the car to you are refusing to give you any paperwork or contract to sign. They do not want to make a binding agreement with you to sell this car.
Yeah, I mean, they're selling the car. Yeah. And for some reason, they don't want you to sign the contract.
They don't want any paperwork.
No.
Did this car fall off the truck?
Not at like an actual car dealership, but maybe for buying a car off like Facebook Marketplace. Or like from like someone who just puts a sign on their car, like, call this number if you want this car.
Yeah.
And maybe the car is like super faulty and they don't want anything to be like tied back to them if you have like some sort of serious accident.
I could see like maybe I want some sort of warranty that this car isn't going to break down. And
don't buy that car.
And the car seller is like, no. We're good. We don't really do that. But as far as the price goes, if we're negotiating, I don't know. I kind of feel like that they're pushing you to sign more than I'm pushing them. Like, hey, where's the paperwork? Let me buy it. Let me sign the paperwork we've negotiated this deal.
Insanely dodgy. I mean, don't buy that car because there's no reason. Yeah. I think, you know how I invented the Rupert tweet game?
Yeah.
Several years ago.
Not your brother. You did. Yeah.
Well, we were a team, but anyway, we'll fight about that till we die. But here's a game for you. And I think that you or Mike and Liana should do at the end of the season. I want you to go back and get all the analogies. Sam, this is on you. And then put in some fake ones. And then people because it sounds like you played that clip and I watched the episode twice and I've never heard it before in my life.
Yeah.
It's in one ear, not the other. And except for the heart surgery one, which I loved because Jeff immediately realized that he doesn't know anything about heart surgery.
And Jesse is a good sport. He says, yes, it is exactly like that. Okay.
It's exactly like it. Yes. And we've all been and the thing about that analogy, I think, which is great, is that it's like so super relatable because we've all been in that situation where the person who's selling us a car doesn't want us to sign anything.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right. You mentioned surgery. Okay.
Yes.
Let's go to Gabler. And so let's compare this to Gabler. We always want to compare it to people's day jobs. Okay. Yeah. Gabler, tell us this.
So Gabler, you wake up this morning, game's back on. If you're in the operating room, what part of the surgery are we at right now?
What part of the surgery is this?
The one where we get our scalpel. And we're just like making our little markings on someone's body about where we're going to cut into them. And then we're going to take out the heart. Yeah. And put in a different one.
Yeah.
And we're about to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And boy, Gabler painted a bleak picture. I don't have his answer, but he made it sound
waiting
like
for no. I know he said
like, Jeff, well, we could lose this patient.
yeah.
It's not good. Not good.
Yeah, it's amazing that you could, and like it's funny because then later, Jeff said Gabler was being really vague. I'm like, no, you just didn't understand the medical terminology that he was using.
Yeah, I have in my notes, Gabler, if you're in the operating room, what part of the surgery are we on? And then the next line is, Omer, are you getting any of this? I forgot to ask him when he was here. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that. No, you know, the less than 1% of the audience that has been near an operating room. And I know that like he's not a surgeon, but he still knows more about this than would relate to the average viewer.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then this is one more analogy, and after further review, I think this was my favorite. Okay. Jeff then talked about Gabler's basically saying there's a lot going on. There's more going on than you realize, Jeff. Okay.
So Gabler, really, it's the duck up top, underneath.
Okay. And again,
no one said that.
If you have the visual, Jeff says that's what it's like, which Jeremy, I believe, actually first made that same analogy in Winners at War. But I just want to go back to, according to Jeff, the sound that a duck makes. This is the sound of the very familiar sound of a duck. Again, is this a cartoon duck that Jeff is?
So Gabler, really, it's the duck up top, underneath.
You know, a duck.
Don't like ducks quack? Wasn't that?
I guess no, ducks. And again, this would have been a good question for Omer.
Maybe he's talking about the Mighty Ducks. You watching that?
Did they make that sound?
No, they don't. So maybe. Maybe. Yeah. More than a regular duck.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, is that some sort of like a goose?
No. That's also not the sound a goose makes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I understand, like, it's hard to talk in the moment. Just like, why would you include that? Like, with Jeff's watching the episode back, it's like, can you take that out? That's so embarrassing for me. Also, I feel like I should have said that's the new sound clip as well. Australian Survivor does, now that I'm thinking about it, they make a lot of analogies, but only to their professions. So, but it's not just tribal, like the whole thing is like playing this game is like being a blank that you are. And that's like the whole thing is how they're defined by like the pain researcher versus the big wave surfer. Like, I think that's like the biggest thing. So yeah. We're loving the analogy game. I think like as a community, I don't know if you remember, Rob, we said this ages ago. I feel like we were before our time. And one of the maybe like Winners at War or Heroes versus Villains podcast that we did in the ranking, I think it was Winners at War. I think we were all like tribal councils super boring and that's all just admitted to each other. And now that's like the most popular take.
Yeah. I think it's gotten worse also because I think that like worse. Survivor got, and this is a take that I've been formulating for a while. I think Survivor has gotten addicted to the live tribal council, and I think that they and probably around the edge of extinction. I think that was the point where Survivor really fell in love with when JT got out of his seat, even though there was somebody else that did it first. You know, that we're really getting into, okay, the tribal council is alive. And I think that Jeff is desperate for, and production is desperate for that to happen again in some capacity. And maybe, of course, at that tribal council, that really the one that was like 2 segments, that it really sort of erupted around pilots and passengers. And I'm wondering maybe if Jeff might be trying to just like ever so loosely, like knock a few pebbles out from the mountain where maybe an avalanche might happen, where there could be a live tribal. But for whatever reason, the live tribal council is very dead in the new era of Survivor.
But we found the other worst thing. They're like, we'll make you beg for the live tribal councils after complaining about it for
several seasons. Just wonder if is the tribal council so long that they built so much of the show into, okay, we need the full like segment here for tribal council, but nothing is ever going to happen.
But okay, I agree with parts of your theory. So it's kind of ironic how much Game Changers like changed the game. Such a terrible season, and they were like, we're gonna like try push advantage, get in live tribals, the music thing started. They were like, wow, we really learned a lot from that season, and like it should have been what not to do, and then that is just not what happened. But I think like your theory is partly right, and that they are obsessed with live tribals. I don't see how Jeff's questions would possibly create one, because there's such nothing questions. Like he should ask more pointed questions, as we've said, not just about pointing. I just think maybe they've forgotten how to do a regular tribal council with all the lives.
If we went back to that tribal council where the infamous like Julie, I'm jumping ship, and Julia, Rick, you're such a passenger, you know, I think it was sort of started off by David Wright at that tribal council, like talking about the metaphors, and Rick building on that of, you know, there are some people in the game that are passengers and on the plane, and some people are the pilots on the plane, and then who's a pilot, who's a passenger. And that sort of got into, you know, who were the people who were making moves versus not making moves. And Julia was trying to get people to not make a move, and that sort of like Rick. So like, well, I think that if she doesn't want us to make a move, then, you know, we should. And then the whole thing ended up like going crazy.
Yeah, that wasn't even like that exciting an episode, but like they've been trying to do it on like that one example. Like what was like a standard question that you would get when you played?
I really don't remember. I have to be honest. I do remember that Jeff being like very like, the thing that would really make Jeff mad is if you didn't answer the question, or just gave like a very short answer. And so now I feel like that the analogies allow people to sort of like filibuster and talk.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that the most upset Jeff will get is if you just answer his question like, yes, no, I don't think so. Just give him like nothing. And I can remember one time where he like got especially short with Butch, and Butch, who, in fairness to Butch, probably, didn't, come into tribal council with like David Wright caliber analogies ready to go. And I feel like that, I can remember one particular moment where Jeff was like very short with Butch and told him that he needed to be giving much better answers to the questions. And so but the analogy has sort of like maybe changed the tenor of tribal council, where it's a safe space to just talk about things. We're just making analogies. Nobody's, it's not an inquisition.
Well, it's a great out for the players. Like, they're playing Jeff. You're saying he would be mad if they gave you nothing, and now you can talk about aortas and stenotic valves, which is really like saying nothing that anyone understands or that is relevant. And Jeff's like, okay, great answer. Let's move on. Like, we really got the content. So, I mean, I don't like the players. It's a wonderful out that they've been given. Like, why would they not?
But Jeff is so receptive that he is like the ultimate like yes and to anybody. You could make any analogy and Jeff's like, oh yeah. And he will try to build off of it. Like, he will never shoot you down. I don't see that. I actually don't see how it's like that.
Yeah, I 100%. Because I think Jesse said, and like I really try to listen, like he said that, trust is like currency. So you have to see who has the bigger bills. But you can't like use the black light on the bills.
Yeah.
Is this anything any of us are doing? This is not relatable to my daily life.
So maybe like if you like
no one uses cash
in a convenience store where people were trying to like hand off like counterfeit money. I guess that's like the fake idol. You could have like the black light that can tell you if it's real or not. Because in some way there's something there.
There's nothing there. Don't do it. Don't give it credit.
Yeah, that's my dream though, for that somebody makes an analogy and Jeff says like, no, I reject that.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all.
He kind of does.
Yes.
Well, he hears what he wants to hear. Like Cody said, "Oh, I'm thinking about getting into the water." And Jeff's like, "Oh, so like when there's a shark," and Cody's like, "Absolutely not what I said." But okay.
Yeah.
Like Jeff's already thought of the analogy in his head, and he's like, "All right." He's very excited about it. Like you can see on his face, he's like, "This is unbelievable content." It's never been a greater endorsement of the fact that Jeff is not listening to the podcast.
Yeah, there's probably good and bad to that. So, it is what it is. Okay. Jeff also had an interesting exchange with the contestants on the way into the reward challenge this week. Did you catch this?
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, Jeff.
Morning.
Hi, Jeff.
Loving the black. Loving the black.
Thanks, Carla.
Okay. Also, the audio does not do justice to the visual of Jeff's reaction. Thanks, Carla.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, I firstly wanted to say last week Hannah said that she felt the feast your eyes thing was Australian, just like absolutely insulting. That was not an Australian accent. That was British. It's different.
Yeah.
We don't sound like that. We sound worse.
Did you buy that it was a Mark Burnett impression?
Yeah, I don't think that was great. The only British person that Jeff knows, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have to go on.
What about Ace?
Yeah. Jeff doesn't remember Ace. If you were to ask him right now, $5, no blacklight, says that there's no way he remembers that person. Have you seen this man before in your life?
Counterfeit survivors. Jeff has to hold up the blacklight to them to see if they were really on the show. Yeah, that would be great.
It was an Ace impression, you think?
Maybe.
What a callback. Who says that Jeff doesn't like to talk about Survivor?
Wow. Okay, let's see. Was this an Ace impression?
Feast your eyes on what awaits you on day 17 of Survivor 43.
Wait, what day was Ace voted out? Is day 17 Ace Day on Survivor? Wow. Hold on. Let's just see. Is that possible? What's over under day 17 for Ace being voted out of Survivor? Under? Okay. Yeah. Survivor Wikia, Gabon. Let's see. And Ace is voted out. I bet it's close. Let's see.
This would be an incredible insight if we were to get it. Wow, 1 in 39 chance. I'm excited about it.
Okay. Let me see. It's so hard to find the day of.
It's
right. So it was a double. Okay.
Yeah.
Ace voted out. It was in between. So Kelly was voted out before Ace on day 18, and I think Ace voted out day 21.
Oh, well, that's not even close. Why would you ring the bell for that? What is the bell? Like it was emotional music.
That was like in my mind that was sort of like close but no cigar.
Okay, well you should have a different bell for that.
What should I have? Like just like a one-man band of like 100 bells?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. Maybe I should have some sort of like thing on the soundboard. I guess the soundboard is sort of like that.
Yeah. Exactly. You really make. Wait, can you please play the feast your eye thing and just listen out for the really awkward "what is happening" laugh right after he says "feast your eyes on what awaits you."
Okay.
Feast your eyes on what awaits you on day 17 of Survivor 43.
It's like the Julie Louis-Dreyfus like what the F gif when he says that. I'd be confused too. I'd be like, I know why I feel a little dippy. Like I haven't eaten, or like, why are you being like this? You know?
You
have a trailer and a hotel room. Black shirt.
All right. So let's go back to some questions. Let's take a voicemail. Another voicemail. Claire has a question for you. Okay.
Love it.
All right. Here, I think I have too many tabs open after I made fun of Nicole the other day for having 45 tabs over. Well, what was your take on that? Are you a big tabber or no?
Yeah. Well, I have to like get to everything. So if I'm going to close those tabs, like I will write it down to come back to it later.
Okay.
There's tabs in my mind open all the time.
Okay. Here's Claire.
Hi, everybody. It's me. I have a question for you. And basically, it's like, why are we discounting Gabler? I don't think he's going to win, and I don't think that he is a strategic genius. However, he is playing really effectively, in my opinion. We don't know if the first tribal where he's like, I'm just going to play the shot in the dark was strategy, and I'm sure it was not, but it did work. And I mean, whether or not you planned it, I think that there is some merit to being able to save yourself, or at least having people want to work with you. He was able to forge a good enough relationship with Sammy to be clued in on when the girls were looking through his bag. And he did spearhead the Ellie vote. And even though I don't think that Ellie was going to go for Gabler in the next episode, I do think that she was not considering him in his long-term plans. And now he's getting roped in with people. I mean, Owen could be in the same position, but people don't want to work with Owen. They want to work with Gabler. I don't think he's necessarily winning just based on the caliber of some of the other players in the game, but I find myself getting a tiny bit frustrated every week when everyone's like, well, Gabler, he's not going to win. He's a fool. I mean, I think he's had as much agency or possibly more than someone like Marianne did. And I don't know, just justice for fake Dr. Mike.
Fake Dr. Mike.
Guys, bye.
Okay. All right.
Gosh,
so
comparison.
All right. Gabler, first off, thank you, Claire. I love the it's me. Go right into your question. So
hi,
it's me.
Yeah.
Okay. So Claire says, okay, justice for Gabler.
Well, I'm going to push back on like him having more agency than Marianne. Like Marianne can talk, for almost 6 hours with you, Rob. Not enough because we did beat her with our winner deep dive, which she hates. But about her intentions and her strategy, and so much of what she was doing was like incredibly intentional. Whereas I feel like for Gabler, like he might have broad intentions, but a lot of the time things happen in spite of him, not because of him. Like the Ellie move, for example, like he did put her name out there and he got her out. But also the way that he did it meant that like there were 100 different ways, mainly like playing Janine's idol, that it should have been okay. Like actually the way he went about it should have put the plan in jeopardy, not had it go through. I think what's hard with Gabler is like, is he drawing dead? If not, then he's close to it because it's so hard to beat 2 people next to you. And a lot of other people have like incredible claims to it. Still some game to play, but it's hard. But when someone's drawing dead or close to it, how do you assess those moves? When like for what? Like the optimal move to do what? If you can't win, like to get as close to winning as possible. Like, I mean, when we get to the Chizzy points, I was impressed with Gabler more than ever in this episode. But I think it's hard when he has an easier pathway because he has less to lose. Like, make the big moves and don't worry about being a threat later because people won't think about it. Like, you have way more runway and you should be able to do a lot more because people aren't looking at you. And so when you have kind of that leeway, I'm a little bit less impressed with like the tightrope that someone like Jessie or Kyla has to walk through these really good games that they're playing because they are so threatening.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know if Gabler can win the game, but if he does win the game, let me bring in a question that came to us from our live audience. Kenzie wants to know. Okay. Somebody on Discord brought up a comparison to Gabler from and Tom from Survivor South Africa 6. What do you think about that comparison?
I think it's so apt. I totally see it. They're both, again, like very emotional players. And like Tom really accelerated towards the end. I will say Tom had a final 2. And Tom needed that final 2. Like, if you were to tell me that it's a final 2, anyone can win. Like, that's what we found with final 2s. You just need to sit next to one person who has like a terrible final tribal council performance. And that is your pathway to winning. Final 3 is very, very, very tough. And Tom would have struggled with a final 3. So that's the issue that I have in the, like, at a point with these final 3s, someone looks like there's not 2 people that they can beat. And I think that person is Gabler.
Right. There could be somebody who turns on their allies. It ends up becoming very hated. It would be tough for Gabler to sneak in and be that person to steal the votes. So I guess he could go on an immunity run. I think that's also a possibility. We've seen him be able to perform in the challenges, but it would seem unlikely for Gabler to make this run. I am fascinated by what he wants to do next and who can pick him up. I had said on the Know-It-Alls the other night, whoever can control Gabler gets to the final 3. Do you agree or disagree?
Yes, but I don't think it's next round. I think it's the round after that. And even with the caveat of maybe not because of idols. But like if the pairs are sticking together next round, Gabler might not be that important, but then you'll need to pick him up and whoever's left at, the week after that. Like, can you pencil Gabler in for a final, at least for final 4 at this point?
I was going to ask you, yes or no, Gabler's in the final 3?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like a high possibility other than like something happening with fire.
Yeah.
Because why not? When are you voting him out and why?
Does it make any sense if you are Jessie and Carla and trying to prevent the mutually assured destruction, vote out Gabler at the final 7?
No, it doesn't. Because Owen has friends on the jury, like he's he's like, they're all kind of physical threats. But Sammy's a bigger threat. So like, no, I don't think so. And also I think the thing is that Carla will think that Gabler wants to work with her correctly, but also Cody and Jessie will think that. So why would either pair vote out someone that they all think that they're working with?
I guess so. That would require some sort of like knowing of the edit that Gabler is going to work with Carla and Cassidy, and that he is not loyal to Jesse and Cody. So oh boy, if are any of those three, would Owen go with Jesse and Cody over? I feel like that all three of those Baka boys are more loyal to Carla and Cassidy.
Well, it depends. Like, do you want to go with the group you've been more disparate from, Carla and Cassidy, but who've like not really betrayed you, but you've just been working with less, or like the people who like keep betraying you, but that you've had more of a working relationship with? I think. I mean, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, they have their idols. Like, that's what that's what will be working with them.
It's so interesting, just this final 7, because I feel like that the 3 Baka boys might each be, and maybe not Owen, might each be more loyal to Carla and Cassidy. But if Carla and Cassidy make a move and take out Jesse, I feel like that Cody is more likely to scoop up the Baka boys.
Yeah. At that point, anyone will. Like, at that point, like, there'll be one pair remaining and they'll probably be out next. Because they'll be like the thing that doesn't fit. It'll be 4 free agents and a pair at 6. So like, why would you allow that pair, especially a threatening pair, which either one would be, to go through the game? That's why there's so much mutual destruction if they go against each other, and so much reason to stick together. I think that's what it is. I mean, I would say Sammy's gone next. It was an unfortunate fall for a game I've really enjoyed. But yeah, I just think that he's kind of like now on life support.
Okay. Shannon, are you ready to talk about Chizzy points?
Yeah,
and
I was waiting.
That I don't have the music cue.
I know, I was going to send it to you.
The Chizzy points. Could you sing it?
We'll put on the dramatic music and I'll sing it over it.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
This is going to be really hard.
All right. To the tune.
But will you sing it too?
I'm sorry. I don't know.
Just say it's just 3s and 2s and 1s, and then it just says it's getting kind of chizzy.
Okay. All right.
This is going to be really hard. Okay. 3.
3.
2.
2.
1.
1.
1.
Let's get 1.
3. 2.
1.
1. 2. 3.
1. 3.
3. 1. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1.
It's getting kind of chizzy.
Yes. If you got voted out, you'd get this music, Shannon.
Because I have so much growth?
Yes.
I don't grow.
Okay. Beautiful. All right.
That was a horrible rendition of the Chizzy.
I have to say,
I meant to send it to you.
I have thought of this over this week, and I actually feel like that this is quite a difficult week.
It is quite hard, yeah.
To do. It was an easy week to do the fishy, but a hard week to do the Chizzy.
That's why we do it.
To
make things hard for ourselves.
Yeah.
No, like, that's the thing, is you're meant to be looking like, who was the 3rd best player this episode? It's really tough. Rob, you go first. I do math.
Okay. How about let's give a point to Cassidy, who I think helped her case to potentially come through and be that Erica who pops up at the end of the game. I thought that she had a really interesting strategy. I was so high on the Survivor production bringing back the House of Cards challenge. And I don't think I've ever seen anybody execute the strategy that Cassidy did in that challenge, where she had built a very stable base. And then I kind of felt like that Jeff kind of jumped ahead a little bit. I thought it was like a little bit improper for him to say, oh, now Cassidy's going to lay them all flat and put one on top at the end, where I mean, she might have just been like, hey, I'm just going to keep laying them flat up until, like, I didn't know I could do that, where I just thought that she did something very interesting. I don't think we've ever seen anybody stack the flat dominoes on top of each other like that in the House of Cards challenge. And so I thought she did a great job with that. I think that, you see somebody win an immunity challenge, people start to look at them differently, especially when they win their first one. And so I think that Cassidy now has at least entered the conversation for somebody who could be a factor in the end game.
Okay. Very fair. I don't know why you would start with the 1, considering the 3 is going to be a really boring choice, but okay. Wait, all the suspense.
I think you said who did the third best job.
Well, I mean, just like in general, that's like the point of the Chizzy. But you go for the other points now.
Okay. All right. With number 2, I'm going to give it to the man that we've been talking about so much in the last 15 minutes. And I'm going to say, give it to Gabler. I mean, Gabler, he's everywhere. He's gonna
That's what they say
be
about him.
in the end game. He is making everybody feel like he is their confidant for a guy that we're saying, oh, he's an emotional player. He's somebody who, you can't take seriously. Well, every single player in the game is telling him their plan. So that must amount to something. And if Jesse ends up going out in the next episode, then I'm going to bet anything that Gabler is going to be involved with that plan and one of the votes to send Jesse out of the game. So I know that he may be potentially drawing dead, but give it to Gabler 2 points.
Yeah. And then the 3 is, I think, like, we don't know where you're going to go with it.
Yeah. Give it to Jesse and really give him 4 if you can.
Well, you can't. Do you also not? Is this why your kids don't understand it? Because you don't understand it?
I said if you can.
You can't.
I said if you can.
Yeah.
Do it and give him 4 points if you can.
Well, I'm not going to react to that as well as Lex did, because we can't do that. Well, I'll start on the 3 because it's boring. Yes, I will give it to Jesse, who, I loved him trying to do the plurality vote. I loved, and the thing is with Jesse, like this, like Omer pointed it out, like the way he like was putting things on Cody, but like his language, he'll externalize, like they're doing this, and he's like very considered in that approach. He obviously like also has all the connections to do it and the knowledge that we found out, the real power of knowing about Carla's idol. So he's doing a lot of good things and like was in the center, and it like almost didn't even come back on him till like the very end, which he was pushed into making that move. So yeah, I mean the one issue was I think going to Gabler, but he still did more than enough, I think, to get 3 Chizzy points. 2 I will also give to Gabler, who I think just like being Jesse's one blind spot is like enough of a thing. And like a lot of people, they were all going to him and being like Noel and misreading him, like he wasn't into it. So I think like the fact that he can kind of be unreadable to people is probably a good thing for him. And like he couldn't blow it up because of all the factors. It's probably too late. There weren't the numbers there, but at least he like got something going to maybe do it next time. And if you are Gabler, you should live life on the edge and try and make big moves like that. So he did.
Shannon, did you think during Tribal Council that Jesse might be going home?
I was hoping not.
I was hoping not as well.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I thought there was a little bit of a thing because I do think we hadn't seen it happen, but I think that Survivor's editing style will do that sometimes now, where it's like we got the plan together in like a flashback form. But I kind of felt with the way that Gabler was saying it, he meant like we should deal with that, but like tomorrow, not today. Yeah,
but I did feel like that in terms of the way it was edited at Tribal Council, especially like the second time I watched it, I felt like that there was a lot of like tense shots that they gave us potentially of like, okay, could something big be happening?
Yeah, well, that's what they want you to think, obviously, when they show that happening. So I thought it was a possibility, but it did, like, when you see it's raining, as Omer said, when Gabler is mad that it's so late, it's like there's not a lot of time left to do it.
Yeah.
And like, I think that this is why he really needed to give it to Gabler late. Like, as upset as he was about the timing, like, God knows what he would have tried to do if he had the time to do something. So, like, you really had to push it.
That is so interesting about the rain that you bring up that Omer observed, where Jeff is like, oh, okay, Tribal Council, it's raining. Okay. But really, does a rainy Tribal Council tend to be a prelude to a boring vote?
All the most impressive. There's like a really famous blindside in Australian Survivor where it's raining and they're in the shelter because they can't go out. And so they like mouth over the person what the hit is because they can't go and have that conversation. So like, if you're going to get it done, then that's really impressive. But like most of the time you're all together. You can't have as many conversations. You can't run around into the jungle. So it obviously hampers it.
Yeah. Rob's fact checker. I would love a list of biggest foul weather blindsides in Survivor history.
That's a tough one because it's kind of subjective. But like this Australian Survivor one that I'm thinking of, it makes it tough. So like if you get it done, it's very impressive. But like, even with as we're saying, the timing of it, it's funny because like with Carla as an example, like clearly like so much of last week was that she just like didn't have the time. But we'll talk on a podcast for hours of like what she could have done. Like we'll think it through for 2 hours that she just doesn't have, like she could have done this and she could have included Sammy, but use knowledge is power. And she like, maybe she just like in that moment is so blindsided and then doesn't have the time that she doesn't think to do those things or, like that's a lot. Like you need the time to even work through that in your mind. So I think that can go missing is like how constricting time it can be. Obviously people are using it for that reason.
That's why they want you to have a live Tribal Council.
but people just refuse at this point. Like
They
that
refuse
probably
to
would have
do
been
it.
Kyla's only. She would have had to go to James and be like, use it now. Probably at Tribal. That's probably like the time that she had.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, people have less time than ever at the moment because they won't get up at Tribal. But I respect them for that. Thank you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, put your own game on the back burner. We'll just listen to the analogies, but at least like no one's getting up, which is just
Okay.
great. And then speaking of, I will give a point to Carla.
Okay.
I kind of struggled a little bit because it was hard. Like, I think Cody, like he's in that swing position. He's just like broadly social, which is good. Cassidy, I agree. I think we hear a lot from her about maintaining the alliance, but we don't see it as much because it's probably quite hard to show because it's in like little social moves. So we hear it more, but it's like, I want to maybe see more. Carla, I feel some very unfortunate stuff, like being targeted on the back foot for once, like depending on other connections to get her through, and the fact that they know about her idol because of the beads. That is unfortunate to find out, but like not really her fault. Whereas I feel like in terms of like good things that she did, she sits on the idol even though she's being targeted. So that's ballsy. As Oma said, that's good. She pushed for her safety, and it didn't even come back on her. You know, she makes Jesse go out and get Gabler. Well, he says Gabler, but she wants that other number. He goes and does it, and it comes back on him only. So she protects herself. She prioritizes her own self-preservation and doesn't suffer for it. And I think like she was doing well, like throwing Sammy under the bus. Like I think there was like some good social work there, and just like like every week I think we say like Carla's impact, like the fact that Gabe was most comfortable coming to her with his thoughts about Jesse, even though he was about to vote for her, shows I think like the connection she has across the aisle. So that means the charts, Rob. Would you like to hear the Chizzy charts?
Yes,
for this
please.
Season? So Carla's in the lead on 25 now.
Okay.
And Jesse just jumped up to second with those 6 points on 20. So now the Chizzy is mirroring
game.
the season into like those two big players.
Mhm.
Then it's Sammy and Cody on 15.
Yes.
So that's 4 of the 7 left.
How often does the winner of the Chizzy points also go on to win the season?
Rob's fact checker would have the exact stats. It's pretty often. I would say probably like around 50% of the time.
Oh, yeah.
But we've also had some really dominant winners in the seasons I've covered. Like I don't want to spoil a lot of like international seasons, but we've had very dominant winners. We've had I did like
feel
the
like
Tony
especially
era.
Australian Survivor, like they're really going to. I mean, not since like the first season of Australian Survivor. I don't want to talk out of my butt too much, but I feel like that when somebody's going to win, they're going to show you how they won.
Yeah, so like 2 of the 4 seasons of Australian Survivor, I've covered. The winner won the Chizzy. 3 of the 4 Survivor South Africa seasons. I'm just doing the math in my own head now. Yeah. Not Survivor New Zealand, but that was probably contentious. And then the US, just Tony so far. So yeah, the US is under the stats. So yeah, it's probably about roughly 50% based on those numbers. James left on 12. Now Noel left on 10. Ellie left on 6. Neka left on 5. And then Janine left on 1. And in the middle of all that, kind of towards the bottom, now Gabler's on 5, Cassidy's on 3, and Owen is on 2. So there's a big divide between the people that are left in the game.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let me play into the voicemail. Megan, the librarian, has a question.
Hey, Rob. Hey, Shannon. This is Megan, the librarian, calling. So I know when Shannon's on the show, we usually talk about smart things. And so I apologize to Shannon because what I'm about to say is really pretty stupid, but I wondered if Rob might have had the same thought that I did, because on Know It Alls the other day, Rob, you said something about Cody and Cassidy. And I thought, why does that pair of names sound so familiar to me? And I finally realized that Cody and Cassidy were Kathy Lee Gifford's kids that she used to talk about on Live with Regis and Kathy Lee all the time. Do you remember that? Anyway, to turn this into a better question, maybe you could talk about Cody and Cassidy's position in the game. Is there any chance those two could work together? Maybe start a Gifford family alliance? Okay, thanks. Bye.
Enough with the Cody and the Cassidy. Gelman.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Do you have any idea what she's talking about? Was that a foreign language?
Yeah, completely.
Do you know who Kathy
you could have been talking about heart
is?
surgery.
Yeah.
I don't know. Should I?
Yeah. She was a talk show host
I've got that from context
with Regis. You remember, you know Regis?
Kind of.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Oh, right, but we had a different host for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Oh,
in both South Africa and Australia. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We had our different. We had we had Who Wants to Be a Millionaire.
Yeah.
In terms of names, I mean, I was raked over the coals in the first podcast because my guest Teresa was choosing between Jesse and James as her winner pick. she could only choose one. But then everyone was like, I can't believe you said Jesse and James so much and you didn't bring up Pokemon, Team Rocket, faster than the speed of light. Surrender now, prepare to fight. Why is this going over your head? This is like a major pop cultural thing. Have you not heard of Team Rocket?
I am not the Cesternino that you should be talking to about the Pokemon.
Nicole.
Yes. Yes. I mean, there's also a lot of talk about, are there any other fun combinations? They talk about like Jesse and Owen, of course, famous Olympian, Jesse Owens.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think if there's any other fun combinations from this season.
I mean, I don't have them.
Not the top of our head. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, but as far as Cody and Cassidy working together,
they are.
Yeah, I guess
they have been the entire time.
But it seems like that they are like
auxiliary.
Where they're in some sort of like this is a little bit of like stretches like but Cody and Jesse are sort of like imagine them as like a pair, and then Cassidy and Carla are in a relationship. A lot of cuss sounds in this group. And then also, like, it seems like that Jesse and Carla work together and are sort of like work spouses with each other. And then when they get together for dinner, then it seems like that at the dinner table, Cassidy and Cody are the furthest away from each other.
They're the Phoebe and Chandler. Like, they're in the friendship group, but they don't have a lot of individual storylines.
Exactly like that.
I mean, look, Cody last week said, like, oh, we should keep Cassidy around to keep working with Carla and James. And I thought that doesn't sound that good for Cassidy, the way she's being seen as like a number for them and not like, oh, well, we've been working with Carla and James. I mean, his relationship was with James, right? It was Cody and James and kind of like Carla and Jesse. Like, that was like the double dating thing that was happening. And now it's Cassidy.
Shannon, I know you said you had a ton of notes from this episode. Is there anything from your notebook?
Very strategic, mostly.
That we haven't covered?
Plurality votes, voting blocks. I think we pretty much got to it. Just at this point, looking through it. We didn't talk about the Jets. It's not in my notes, but I
did have a question for you.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Question for Shannon, who recently attended her first NFL game, a Jets game versus the Bills. And we got this question from Andrew Rabin. Wants to know, how does Shannon Guss feel about the Jets after the rough loss last week? Does she think that Mike White is the answer? For Survivor fans who are very confused as to what we were talking about, in addition to being a Survivor contestant and creator of the White Lotus, Mike White is actually also the name of the new Jets starting quarterback. Shannon, are you even more into the Jets now that our quarterback that shares a name with a Survivor?
Well, you guys got
Not
Mike
since
White.
Gary Boom has this happened.
Yes. But like, I think I'm only a new Jets fan, a lifelong Jets fan, but like in terms of my lifespan as an NFL fan, which is 3 weeks old. So I think Mike White was always there. I love the Jets. I'm sad to find out that they lost so badly. Mike told me, Mike Bloom, not Mike White. Imagine if Mike White, the Survivor.
Yeah, I would not say that they lost so badly.
They lost to the Patriots.
They lost in heartbreaking fashion. Yes.
That's very few points.
Yes.
I'm pretty upset about it.
Yes, basically the last play. Yeah.
This is what happened with the Jets. Okay, we were going with friends to the Jets versus Bills because they go for the Bills. And they did a tailgate, which is something we didn't know what it was. And we said we'd go. And so I thought we were all going to go for the Jets because it was in New York. And I told you we were going to go for the Jets. And I only know the Jets because you go for the Jets. And then Peter said, no, they're all Bills fans. So we have to go for the Bills. And I was like, well, I already told Rob I'm going to go for the Jets. So Peter went for the Bills and they gave him like a hat and everything. And then we're at this game and it's like a phenomenal game. Like you don't have to be an NFL fan. Like I'm a sports fan. Like I'm like aware. Like the Jets were in Australian betting terms like 6-1 and they were like going to win. And it was like the home crowd. And Jordan Kalish told me it was like their best win since 2010. And I said to Peter, like, you have to be going for the Jets right now because if the Bills win, you can tell that this was going to be like whatever, like they're the favorites. Whereas like if the Jets win, this was like clearly iconic. So like in the last 5 minutes, Peter changed, took off the hat, went for the Jets. The Jets won. It was like crazy atmosphere. Everyone was singing Sweet Caroline for some reason. And we were all like,
I didn't know we did that. Yeah.
Jets, 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 Jets. And Peter, like in all the photos, is wearing the Bills hat. And he's like, this is so embarrassing right now that I was wearing the Bills.
But, very embarrassing.
Yeah. I don't know why it was Sweet Caroline. It was what if it was like such a fun day? So now I'm all in on the Jets forever.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with Mike White. Are you sticking around? You're going to still be following the team?
I will Google the score every couple of weeks. Yeah.
All right.
I'm gonna but now they've like fallen to the bottom of like the ladder, and apparently
Does the Jets point total from last week sound more impressive if we say it was 3 Chizzy points that the Jets were able to score?
Not against 10 Chizzy points.
I didn't know you can get 10 Chizzy points.
Well, you can't, but it's not the Chizzy. It's a different sport. Like, it's a different game. So
I guess so.
Yeah. I mean, Rob, I hope you haven't like wrote me into some like depressing, terrible sports team thing.
Yeah, that's kind of our thing. So
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I don't want to do that, but I'm in now.
Okay.
So
here, Tyler has a question for you. Of course, we talk a lot about T Swift on the feedback show. Tyler wants to know, what's Shannon's favorite song on Midnights? And could you help get Hannah Shapiro any Taylor Swift tickets? Since you've touched her hand twice.
I've been to every Taylor tour.
Hands. Touching hands.
That's what it's about. Sweet
Reaching
Taylor
out.
Swift. Yeah. That's what that song is for me. That time I touched her hand twice. It was so good, Rob. I wish you had been. So good. So yeah, anyway. Yeah. I can't help Hannah Shapiro get tickets. Obviously, what in would I possibly have there? I need to think about my own Australian tickets. My favorite song on Midnights, I think, is The Great War, personally. But I think Could Have, Would Have, Should Have is the best.
The Great War?
Yeah.
What's it about?
I'm the 3
World War II?
It's about a fight in a relationship and then like coming back stronger with allusions to, and also, The Great War is World War I, right?
World War I, is that what it's about?
Well, the Great War is what they called World War I before it was World War I because there hadn't been a second one yet. So that's the analogy. Actually, it's an analogy song, which she should be punished for. What happened was, I don't know if you know, why is Taylor Swift such a big part of your feedback shows lately?
She's everywhere.
She's everywhere. No, because she dropped the album at midnight, which was like 3 p.m. for me. And then she dropped like 7 more songs at 3 a.m. And I liked the 3 a.m. drop better.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm a 3 a.m.
I thought that you were going to tell us it was about how it was a World War I allegory.
No, I don't know. We're not doing the analogy thing.
Okay. I thought Taylor was.
The song, The Great War, like they were fighting and then they didn't. Like, and fighting is a thing you do in war.
I guess so.
It writes itself.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Shannon, anything else you want to make sure we cover here?
I think we got it. What about you? You talked about it less on this feedback show because the recap is coming later. So you've got more thoughts to give. Can't give them all out here.
Yeah, I might have to watch the episode again and go back and get more thoughts.
Does that happen when you watch it for a third time? Is there stuff that you're like, I missed that the first 2
Well,
times?
I feel like, I do so many podcasts. I just feel like that I go back and I watch the episode again, and then I have different things that I may have like observed on another viewing, especially like when we're so spaced out from when we watch the episode on Wednesday. I usually won't watch the episode again before I do the Thursday podcast, but with a couple days off in between, especially with the holiday. So I will, maybe we'll see before I talk to Tiffany tomorrow. But let me tell you about what else is coming up here on Rob Has a Podcast. Okay. It's Black Friday. Shannon, do you have Black Friday in Australia?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Black Friday is here. Use promo code Happy Holidays for 10% off at our robbinswebsite.com/merch store. If you're a patron, check your patron account. There might be something else out there for you. But for everybody, check out 10% off using promo code Happy Holidays at robbinswebsite.com/merch. Okay. All right. So let's see on the list of where we are on the podcast. It's a little confusing. Okay. I did a Survivor Know-It-Alls.
Not with Steven, though.
But not with Steven. Yeah. I haven't done the exit interview. I haven't done the recap show. I did You Are Here on the feedback show. Look for a B&B, but this was also Survivor Global.
Yeah.
Wait for Why Noel Lost. I believe the Stock Watch is already out, and the Purple Pants Podcast Survivor News Edition is out. So
pretty outdated photo for this week.
a little bit. Okay, so that's where we're at. You can get that all in our Survivor podcast feed. Much like Thanksgiving, you will be overstuffed with the Survivor podcast when you go to robinswebsite.com/Survivor feed. Okay, then over on the Amazing Race, Shannon, you're an Amazing Race fan, right?
I'm behind. No spoilers. No spoilers. Somehow I'm not spoiled. I haven't watched any of the Mega Leg. I feel like I'm like kind of so on the season. Like I feel like I'll let a couple of episodes pile up and then I'll just like binge them all. That's what I do.
Okay. Depending on the size of your turkey, you too may have enjoyed a Mega Leg this week, as we did on the Amazing Race recap. Shannon, come for the recap. Stay to see what Mike Bloom was wearing this week, and we recapped it all. Late night, I did 3 podcasts in a row on Wednesday night, including our Amazing Race recap, as we are getting to the home stretch of the Amazing Race.
Yeah.
Exit interview as well.
What is
coming
Mike
on Monday.
wearing? Why is that such a
great question?
Yeah.
And as Shannon, did you watch the Australian Real Love Boat?
I didn't, and I don't think the ratings were great.
Maybe that's universal, because the Real Love Boat, we are still cruising along. Myself, Jenny Autumn, Kirsten McInnes talked about a actually drama-filled episode 8 of the Real Love Boat. Check that out as well. One of the other podcasts I did on Wednesday night. And then, Slumberland, Shannon. Watched it again today.
Oh my God, you didn't.
I did, and I
watched the movie twice.
I watched it twice, and I have to say, full disclosure, I was much more. I was much less in control of my emotions watching Slumberland for a second time. I think I was like in full tears watching Slumberland a second time.
What is this movie? Why do you love it so much? I've never seen you so emphatic about anything as far as Slumberland.
I can't even talk about it.
I'm gonna Wikipedia it right now.
I don't know. I don't know if it's like for normal people, if it has this effect on them, but whatever is the launch code for my emotional buttons, Slumberland has broken me twice this week. Okay.
You have to see how kind of strange that seems with the picture of Slumberland I have in front of me and the fact that you were saying that.
DePete says that I said it was enchanting. I thought I said it was whimsical.
What? Should I watch it?
Look, I don't think that you will dislike it. It may not do for you what it is done to me.
Nothing ever has.
My kids are like, Dad, are you okay?
Oh my God. You're going to watch Slumberland more than you watch these episodes of Survivor.
Slumberland. Oh my God.
Sam says I cried everything, and he's sure that I'll cry. That is true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do that.
Chappelle and I podcast about it on Monday. Boy, Chappelle was so good on the Slumberland podcast. I think I was like, I missed so much on my first viewing of Slumberland.
Was you crying?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I asked my kids after, so I wanted to show it to my children. I showed it to them today, and then I asked my younger son. I said, Anthony, so what'd you think? He's like, it was meh. Yeah.
He just wants to hurt you. Like he
did not have an impact on anybody else like it had on me.
Oh my God.
Okay. And then I also talked with Josh Wigler. Josh Wigler and I are back together talking about different TV shows every single week. Now,
oh my gosh.
We watched the Walking Dead series finale. This week we'll be watching coming up on Wednesday. I think we're gonna watch a new James Corden show called Mammals. Have you heard about this?
No.
Okay, so give us a chance to talk about some different things, and so we'll be doing that each week. All right.
Is Slumberland paying you? Are they
no,
like? Because I might watch it now.
No, I actually, I pay them each month to watch it.
To watch Slumberland.
I do have a podcast about Netflix, but that usually we talk about how much we did not like what we watched.
Slumberland, what an impact it's had on you. It's so beautiful.
It's had a real impact on me.
It's incredible to watch.
Tuesday night, we'll be back playing Roll Call. One of these weeks, we got to get Shannon to play on Roll Call. Of course, that is Grace Leader's new project where once a month we're playing games with RHAP podcasters, and we will be live this Tuesday night to play Spyfall, which, from what I understand, is a bunch of games, and I will learn more about it before Tuesday.
Amazing.
Yeah. Okay. And then we launched a brand new patron show this week, the Patron Happy Hour, where once a week I'll be taking calls and answering questions from the patrons live. And you can call in and talk with me. We'll be doing that sometime next weekend, Friday or Saturday. We will let you know the date and time well ahead of when we do it, but a brand new show for the patrons of Rob Has a Podcast. And of course, it's a great time to become a patron of Rob Has a Podcast. Head on over to robhasawebsite.com/patron to get involved with the greatest Survivor community in the world. Without this community, I would not know Shannon Guss.
I know you.
Yeah,
Isn't
you would
that
know
weird?
me, but we wouldn't
Yeah.
be friends like this if it wasn't for Patreon.
Probably not. Yeah.
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 And probably there wouldn't be a Rob Has a Podcast.
Yeah. Sad to think about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably would have to make
Get
an
a real
honest
job,
living
yeah.
somewhere along the way. And so
Yeah.
I mean, it's brought us this far. So robhasawebsite.com/patron, get access to all of our patron content that we're doing, plus access to our Facebook group and our Discord. If anything happens to the old Twitter, you know that we are going to still be connected. And then check out everything else we have going on when you become a patron at robhasawebsite.com/patron. And of course, make sure you subscribe to all of our podcast feeds, including the Survivor podcast feed and the Survivor Global podcast feed. That's all at robhasawebsite.com/subscribe. Shannon, what is coming up for you?
I want to say so many incredible taglines for Patreon that you just like. Rob Has a Podcast, Patreon. It's gotten us this far. Otherwise, I'd have to make an honest living. Like, there's so many amazing taglines. What's coming up for me? Well, next week, I'm going to have another collaboration based on the image you just put up of all the podcasts. I'm going to be with Taryn doing the Stock Watch. We did the crossover spectacular last season. It was so fun. We got that Vati Tribal Council. It was like the best possible time. Really one of my favorite podcasts.
Great podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really excited to be back with Taryn next week. I'm also covering The Crown on post-show recaps twice a week. Yeah. So I'm covering something that's not Survivor, which has been really enjoyable.
I didn't know you were a Crownie.
I guess it would be Crownie. I binged it all last year, over a whole year. By binged it, I mean that I never watched one episode, like more than one episode in a night, but I loved it and I wanted to talk about it, and Josh let me with Grace. So I'm super excited about it.
Okay. Look, two great podcasters. Check that out over on post show recaps. Anything else fun going on this weekend, Shannon, besides watching the Jets versus the Bears?
I knew that was happening and I'll be watching it. I mean, not a lot. I mean, I guess the only other thing that I think I should mention is Australian Survivor is coming back in January 2023 in Samoa. It's heroes versus villains with half returnees. They've been announcing the cast 2 by 2, much like Noah and the Ark. Every night during the challenge, random people get announced, and like sometimes they're returnees and sometimes they're like a football player. It's kind of peak Australian Survivor, but like Nina Twine is back. A lot of like iconic people are fighting here about heroes and villains, so that's kind of why I was thinking about it with Jesse. But yeah, it's an iconic theme and it should be really fun, so watch it and please listen to the coverage would be what I would say.
All right, well, Shannon, this was so fun. Anytime we get together, I'm always very excited because you have so many great takes about Survivor. And so I am always thrilled to get to hear them. I'm sure the listeners are too. Thank you so much for joining us. Be on the lookout for a podcast with Tiffany Seeley to talk some more Survivor episode 10 of Survivor 43. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.